Hello and welcome to the latest Treasury edition of the Comic Book Chronicles. This is our spoiler-filled Treasury edition for Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker. So this is a quick reminder that we are going to have spoilers for all of Star Wars, including but not limited to, yes, we put in the legal language, including but not limited to the cartoons, especially Clone Wars and Rebels, Marvel Comics, and The Mandalorian. This is your host for tonight at agent_70. You can find me at agent_70 on Twitter and Instagram. And you can find my co-host for tonight. My co-host for tonight is at Roddycat on Twitter. He is also at Roddycat on Instagram, but you may or may not follow him out on there. He is on at News Nerds Need on Twitter and runs the at CB Caps account on Instagram. And he's appreciating the fact that I didn't play, our regular music stuff.
It's all good. What's up, everybody?
There you go. All right.
Version.
Yeah, I mean, this is a Treasury edition, so this is basically going to be us discussing the last chapter of the Skywalker saga. We reserve the Treasury editions for discussions of topics, more specifically movies, that probably are going to overwhelm or overrun any sort of allotted time that we would give them on the regular Comic Book Chronicles. So we are here on a special Treasury edition of the Comic Book Chronicles to discuss the last installment of what has been a pop culture phenomenon for the past 42 years. So Star Wars, Rise of Skywalker, you have been warned. There are massive spoilers for every Star Wars, all Star Wars out there. So get ready. We're going to dive right in.
So the funny thing about you right off the bat that you say, because I did to read an article, I may have it, I can't remember if I have it here or if I have it in an upcoming show note, but yeah, Anthony Daniels, who plays C-3PO, has been doing it for 42 years because he's been a part of pretty much every major Star Wars film.
Sure. And project.
Exactly. Yeah, more than just the films. So, and it's like 42 years. I'm 46, so I'm older than Star Wars. Like Jesus, it's bad enough. Like me and hip hop are relatively or the same age. It's like Star Wars also. Like it's kind of crazy.
What's funny is that I'm only slightly older than Star Wars, so that that kind of lends, and we can even that may come up in our discussion, but in terms of how deeply we feel about Star Wars, kind of depends on when you came up and what you came up with first.
Right.
But to get things started, we just wanted to kind of discuss our overall thoughts on the movie, just broad stroke stuff. I can tell you that in a nutshell, from my perspective, I thought it was an overall enjoyable movie, but it was uneven due to many odd choices, including fake outs. In essence, deaths that were fake outs, which were dealt with within like 2 minutes of film time. And it's just crazy. Another thought that I had, and we're going to talk about it at length probably during the show, is that they did Rose Tico dirty.
As well as other people, but definitely Rose.
Oh, they did her dirty. So I think most people in my theater, I saw it opening night, Thursday night, and I think most of the people in my theater, and the theater was, let's say, 85 to 90% packed. There were some empty seats up front. But it's stadium seating, so it was actually a good number of seats in the theater. It wasn't like the recliner seats.
Right, and even still, like the seats up front are usually not the greatest seats.
Right.
Either way.
Exactly. So I think most of the people in the theater were considering the pros and the cons of the movie when it ended. We didn't have like the rousing applause that I most recently experienced at the end of Endgame. That's the most recent experience that I had with just a rousing applause at the end of the movie, because everyone was, maybe not uniformly happy, but definitely happy. Maybe not happy to the same levels, but I think in this case, everyone was just kind of pondering, not the end of the world like Pinky in the Brain, but definitely pondering what had just happened on screen. And my last sort of broad stroke comment was that there really weren't very many wow moments. There were just a few, and we'll talk about them. But I didn't feel like I was either dazzled or impressed or shocked out of my seat very often in the movie. So those are my kind of 4 basic points in a nutshell.
Yeah, I can echo some of that, like, because I think we've talked about this on, if not the last actual show, but the show before that, when actually, yeah, it was the show before that, when it actually when the no, yeah, because it was the week it came out, that the theater was basically similar to yours, where it's like 80-90% packed. The crowd was a little bit rambunctious in the spots, but not to the point of annoying. And just like yours, yeah, I don't remember there being too many applause at the end. Like there was like 1 or 2 at a spot or 2, but none like at the end. Like hey, just this is it. Like, and for me, it just kind of had me. I was sitting there through the whole credits, knowing that there was no going to be a end credit scene because it's not a Marvel movie, but at the same time, it's like just kind of sit there, kind of soaking it in. Like this is it. Well, excuse me, this is it for the mainline stuff. Like, yeah, we still are gonna have some more Star Wars movies coming, but like this is basically the end of the trilogy of trilogies.
Right. Exactly. That's exactly right. So we're going to go now into just a very loose recap of the movie. I've only had a chance to see it once. I thought that was enough because I've kind of digested a lot of podcasts and other reviews and discussions about it since, and it's kind of helped me to formulate, some of my thoughts on the movie. But how about you, Roddy? How many times have you seen it?
I've only seen it once. I may or may not have tried to procure to go back again. Well, actually, I take it back. I was going to go back and see it again, but like I said previously, that didn't work out the way I was going to. And there are other methods out there which
Sure.
had,
for educational review purposes.
Well, not even just that, just kind of, hey, like just a brief kind of reminder of, hey, this, that, and other kind of scrub through type situation, but that didn't also work out the way I had planned it to. So yeah, right. And usually I try to, like I think I have said before, like I try to get it all in the first time because I don't know whether I am actually going to come back in and see it again in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
I haven't really checked out any podcasts since then, at least of the ones that I usually go to, that would have talked about it, because I don't think they've seen it yet either, sounds like, or have recorded about it if anything.
Gotcha. I mean, shout out to the folks at Binge Mode, Jason Concepcion and Mallory Rubin over at the Ringer, fine website, and shout out to Kevin Smith, who also posted something. They haven't posted the one he does with Mark Bernardin on Fat Man Beyond just yet, but he has posted his own recap, not necessarily review. So, but based on that. We can start our little walkthrough of the movie. Essentially, where we find ourselves at the beginning of the movie is Kylo. Actually, before we even start that, we get just a little bit of info in the crawl, right? And the crawl is something that we can talk about later, but we have some hints of what has happened. Essentially, Emperor Palpatine is back. He is putting out a podcast, apparently, and broadcasting. That's not my joke. I am not taking credit for that. I heard that from somebody. I thought that was hysterical.
I mean, given where part of that was kind of aligned with, which that's a terrible way to do a thing, but we'll get to that in a minute. Yeah, right. That's not that far off from accurate.
Right. I mean, it's essentially like, and for fans of the Rebels cartoon, it's almost like what Ezra did to start the rebellion by sending out a message over all frequencies, basically. But then we find out that there is a little bit of a Fortnite reference we can talk about in the crawl.
Which is what I was referring to.
Yeah. Right. There's a Fortnite reference in the crawl. And then we jump right into the action with Kylo Ren on a red planet with trees. which we come to find out is actually Mustafar, and we're just like, what?
Right. Yeah. Mustafar, not very much known for its, trees.
Vegetation, right?
So that in itself was something weird.
Right.
Even though I want to say there have been, like, obviously in the cartoon, not the cartoons, the comics, Darth Vader specifically, there have been an arc surrounding a trip to Mustafar where he set up a castle. I still don't remember any trees there though, but there was definitely life there.
Right. So Kylo is on Mustafar. Where is he headed? He's headed more likely than not to Darth Vader's old base.
You would think.
Right. And he's there looking for a holocron. No, he's not looking for a holocron. He's actually looking for something called a wayfinder. And he's looking for a way to get to this planet that makes, it sounds like a brand of rubbing ointment, Exegol.
Or laxative.
Oh, exactly. Or a laxative. That's correct. And he's there to look for that. And what was the next scene that we see? Is it him just hacking his way through these kind of Raiden, these like kind of Mortal Kombat looking dudes?
Well, no, that was first. That was
Right,
when he
first.
was, and then he flies off to then he gets the wayfinder, then that's when he flies off to Exegol,
right?
And when he meets up with Palpatine.
That's it. So
who we found out that he according to him, he has been the voice that Kylo's been hearing the whole time, even though we didn't necessarily heard it, but all the voices that he's been hearing has been Palpatine,
right, in the background somehow. Right. He's not dead somehow. It's never actually explained.
Yeah, none of that is explained, but however, we do see like he even said he created Snoke, and and as he's explaining this, we see big back to tanks, you might want to say, of like Snoke parts and whatnot. So that's kind of could be suggesting that like Snoke really was made.
Right.
And also,
I was going to say, I think it's more confirmation of what Snoke was, but not necessarily how Palpatine came back or how he never left.
Well, I feel like, I guess going to something later on, there could be a story that suggests that this was a plan. If we go to the Marvel comic side, a Jackal-like clothing program that the Emperor had going on.
Sure.
But we don't know that for certain.
Right. If I'm not mistaken, the next thing we see is Rey in one of the shots from the trailer in which she's in a forest. Mm-hmm. And we discover that she is actually in Jedi training.
Yes. And who is giving her training?
Guess who? I'm not ringing the spoiler bell. This is all spoilers, but I'm going to do
General Princess Leia.
There you go.
And so, which was a cool thing to see, because now in Legends, obviously we knew she was. Even here we knew she was Force sensitive, and even in Legends suggested to be way stronger in the Force than Luke. And something else that we will get to a little later. But yes, she is the one that is training young Rey in the ways. Which, if you're, like I said, if you're not up on some of the other media that is around, and you're just in it for the movies, that doesn't necessarily lend itself from the past movies. Maybe with the exception of Last Jedi with that one feat she did, but still, even then, I'm sure there are some folks who was like, how is she able to train, or like how is she's got the chops to train somebody, which is something we've never seen, which
right, exactly. We find out more about this later in the movie.
Exactly.
So how is it that do they do the Force time chat where Rey has to figure out that she also has to find a holocron? I mean, the Wayfinder.
I believe that comes up not too long after this. She does definitely gets distracted during her training, let's say, by one Skype call, one forced Skype call of Kylo Ren,
Gosh.
which distracts her. I can't remember if he mentions. I don't think he mentions that, because I think that kind of comes out later in the movie.
Right. So essentially, and this is one of my critiques of the movie. Essentially, now Rey and crew minus Rose are on a fetch quest for another Wayfinder.
Right, but well, before that, because after Rey and Kylo have their little or have their little Skype call, whatever the case may be, or his Skype interruption, because they didn't necessarily talk, but he was definitely messing with her,
right?
Unbeknownst to her, or beknownst to her, we don't know. But we skip to Finn and Poe on a mission to get some info, and they're in the Falcon with Chewie.
Oh, that's correct.
Yeah. So they're getting some information, but quickly are pursued by some TIE fighters after they get said information, and they manage to outrun them due to some fancy and I'm not going to say illegal, but some frowned upon piloting by by Poe.
Right. It's actually pretty damaging, and I think that's probably why they don't do it.
Right. But apparently, Poe, being who he is, he's like, look, whatever, I'm the best pilot there is. I got this.
Right.
Which is funny, because when they get to where they were going, where Rey and the rest of the rebels are, resistance, excuse me, not rebels. That's another thing. Chewie just snitches on them.
Right. Well, everything's on fire, so that's a big sign. All right, so I just to assist my memory, I had to pull up a plot recap on Wiki. Let me know if there's a better one out there, maybe on Wikipedia.
There might be. When I put that one in, I didn't check Wikipedia to see if there was actually another one that was even better, because I did a search for it and didn't see necessarily one out there for it yet.
Right. So
kind of broad strokes.
Right. I mean, we also see, back just to rewind just a little, that Palpatine unveiled a secret armada of Star Destroyers, that all have the power of Death Stars in their belly cannons.
Well, we didn't know this at the time.
Right, but that's the point.
But
let's see here.
Those the Imperial contractors, they must be man, those some heck of workers.
Listen, that's expensive stuff to put together.
Exactly.
That is expensive stuff. But let's see. Right, so Finn and Poe deliver the intel that Palpatine is on Exegol that they got from that spy, and Rey learns from Luke's notes that a Sith Wayfinder can lead them there. So there's our fetch mission.
Right. We also find out prior to that, though, that during Finn and Poe's mission, that there is a spy in the First Order.
Right.
To which we come to find out later on in the movie.
That's right. So as I said before, Rey, Finn, Poe, Chewie, BB-8, C-3PO, and minus Rose Tico depart on the Millennium Falcon.
And minus R2, actually, now that I think about it.
Yeah. Oh, come on. Don't get me started on how they shafted R2 in this, just to sell.
They've been shafting R2 this whole trilogy.
And Babu Freak. Oh, just that.
Babu, come on.
So on the planet of Pisana, they run into a Burning Man type festival because they are on the hunt for some dude who may be able, who is also looking for the Wayfinders, and to get to wherever they needed to go, with the Wayfinder.
Right, and we come to find out who that person is, and not only who that person is, but the fact that he quested along with another Jedi, or I guess the former, another Jedi of note, and that would be one Luke Skywalker, and the person that we find out that they end up with on Pisana is Lando Calrissian.
That's right.
So he pretty much was like, yeah, we there was something we was looking for. He and Luke was looking for something along there, which that's the kind of a story I would kind of want to see, because I don't think they have ever was obviously in the movies they didn't spend that much together at all. You know, like if you count anything, it's like the Ewok celebration at the end of Return of the Jedi. Maybe, well, he was there when Luke got captured by Jabba, you know, in disguise, but they, you know, there was no real, hey, let's go do this thing with them two type situation. So that is a story I suspect we will probably get at some point through the comics. Hopefully we will. Be nice.
Right.
I'd like to see that. That's a weird pairing.
Righto. Okay. Okay, no, Wikipedia does have a very detailed recap. That is far too detailed for us to go through. Holy crap.
I mean, that would be that's not a surprise because it is Wikipedia, and that's like the home of kind of stuff.
Real.
So
unreal.
Not surprising.
Yep. All right. So getting back to the wiki version, they find themselves on the Burning Man plan, in the middle of the Burning Man party, and they discover the remains of the assassin Ochi, his ship, droid, and dagger, inscribed with Sith text that C-3PO's programming forbids him from interpreting.
Which again is another story. Now, yeah, I know you've had a problem with this. Like, I get that part though, because if you think about it, C-3PO's been around a while. You know, yes, he's had his mind blanked, whatever. So I'm kind of surprised that something like this didn't happen before now. But at the same time, we've never seen him in this position. We've seen him caught and captured, whatever. And given whose droid he was initially, you know, even before the Sith stuff.
Well, who his creator was.
Exactly.
Right.
Which was Anakin. So, but I mean, obviously this was Anakin before he became a Jedi. Plus, exactly. So, which actually, now that I think about it, because I think we talked about this after our last show, maybe that I know he got his mind wiped like after Revenge of the Sith.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of wonder if when they wiped his when they wiped his memory, they didn't put that in there then. I kind of wonder they might have sliced that in there at that time, which again would make sense because 3PO was in the hands of the Jedi and didn't want him, even though he could translate it, they didn't want him to have to do that should he get caught and captured or whatever the case might be.
Right. Okay. Now we get our forced time call between Kylo and Rey, where he basically reaches through and touches somebody like AT&T, right? And grabs some beads that she was wearing and figures out what planet she's on, and he comes in pursuit. The First Order captures the Falcon, Chewie, and the dagger because Chewie's got the dagger, and some shenanigans happen.
Yes, which leads to the one big shock that I had in this whole movie.
Oh, yes.
And I believe you had the same one.
The same. I had a similar reaction. We can talk about this now.
So, yeah. So basically, Chewie gets captured. Everybody was trying to be like, hey, we got to go. They got Chewie. We got to go. But they end up capturing Chewie. Kylo and Rey end up facing off, trying to ground the transport that took Chewie, or so we thought.
Right.
And Rey ends up force lightnings it and blowing it up. So she killed Chewie. Everybody thought she killed Chewie.
Right. I honestly think that was the only moment in the moment during the movie that people in the theater had any sort of exclamation. I heard myself over everybody else.
Right.
And I swore. I said I forget what the good place replacement is for the S word, but I definitely was like, Shiznizzle. And
S word if you read X-Men comics recently.
Exactly. So that was my reaction. I definitely had like, I was definitely taken aback by that. I had, my jaw probably halfway down to the ground at that point because I couldn't believe that they had done it, but I understood, but I still couldn't believe that they had done it.
Especially if you knew from the EU that they killed Chewie in the worst possible way, but the fact that Chewie had died previously in the novels, that was that was one thing, but to actually see it on screen, not necessarily in the way that it happened in the books, thankfully, but at all, because even coming into that seems like, watch something happen to Chewie. Because I was saying that the whole time, was like, something's gonna happen to Chewie, something's gonna happen to Chewie, something's gonna happen to Chewie. One, he got caught, there you go. Then two, boom, this happens. I'm like, oh no. So yeah, you were not the only one that was audibly like gasping or whatever the case may be on that one. I was like, God damn it, not Chewie. Why anybody but Chewie?
Right. And it had to be Rey doing it too, whipping out the Force lightning, you know. She was like steps away from yelling out, "Unlimited power!"
Basically, even she was shocked that they did it, because she was like, she was so caught up when trying to win, to where just like, okay, she just got too far ahead of herself.
Crazy.
So, which caused her to kind of go into a state of shock in herself. But everybody managed to escape. Minus Chewie, obviously, but
So they all escape. The remaining resistance fighters escape on Ochi's ship, and Poe suggests traveling to Kijimi to have the Sith text extracted from C-3PO's memory. More fetching.
And yes, and if you're keeping score, the second time that the Falcon's been taken away from folks,
right?
Which shouldn't happen, but nevertheless, hey.
Crazy. So they make their way to Kijimi. They run into Felicity from TV, but she's wearing a helmet.
Basically. Which shocked, it's a little behind the scene, which shocked, well, not shocked, but which kind of took Agent 70 a little bit, knowing that obviously, if you know who's behind this movie, one, J.J. Abrams and Kerry Russell's affiliation with each other being Felicity,
right?
You understand how she got that role, or at least partially the reason why she got that role. So
no, absolutely. So where are we here? So the process to wipe, to get this information out of 3PO, wipes his memory with the aid of little Babu Freak, which everyone seems to love, and I'm just kind of like, meh.
Babu.
Yeah. So, and obviously I'm not one of those
little and cute. That's a Star Wars.
I know. I'm not one of those people that decries little and cute. I definitely understand it. I was one of those kids that was like, oh, screw the Ewoks. I like the Ewoks to an extent.
Right.
I tolerated the Ewoks. Let's put it that way. Babu Freak, I was kind of like, oh, it brought out like a heavy sigh.
Maybe it's because you didn't watch the Ewok specials that they had back in the day.
Listen, don't doubt me. I think I did. I don't remember them at all, but I think I did.
I do.
So, for whatever reason, hold on. Kylo apparently is consistently following them. And
well, basically, I do remember this one kind of. So they were in the midst of wiping his mind. They had Kylo and Rey had another Skype call,
right?
And no, wait, I'm sorry, that's later. But when they went to get 3PO, so never mind what I was about to say. I mean, went to get Chewie, so never mind. But yeah, definitely. That thing happened. So Rey sensed Chewie. That's what happened.
Right, that's it. Right. So Rey sensed that Chewie's alive.
Right, and just so happened to be close by on Kylo's ship, which was in the same sector. So they launched a plan to go and get him. And this was after 3PO's mind got wiped. So, which another thing that kind of bothered me, because I actually props to them going into the trailer, because the trailer made it seem like something's bad, really, really bad was going to happen to 3PO based on what he says, which he did say in the course of this. But that also got taken care of not too long after that, which was like, okay, so you're just gonna make this happen and then just do just like with the thing with Chewie, and like, okay, you're gonna have this thing happen and just erase it a couple minutes later.
Right. So we actually find out while they're on Kijimi that Zori and Poe have a past, possibly romantic, and that Poe was a former drug runner, a spice runner.
Yeah, which people made not people being Rey and Finn made a thing about that. I'm like, why are you either one of you making it? Even Poe was like, why are y'all making a thing out of this? Like,
man, you were a stormtrooper.
exactly. They kept going back there. It was like, you're a scavenger. Now, granted, him. Like, okay, being a scavenger was not that bad as being arguably is not that bad as being a spice runner or a former stormtrooper.
Exactly.
But he brought that up anyway. I'm like, okay, this is an unnecessary conversation at this time.
Lines that could have gone to Rose Tico. Shots fired. So, all right. Whatchamacallit?
This is when we find out the big reveal also. Or not too far after this, or during the course of this, I should say, because like during Rey and Kylo's Skype call, we get the history of her parentage,
right?
And this was actually the other big shock to me. I know you kind of had the thought within you already, but
right,
this was one of the theories that I didn't put too much stock in.
Right, and it turned out to be the right one.
Exactly. And matter of fact, there was an article, I will probably have it in the show notes for next week, or if I don't have it in the other sheet, that somebody had that thought 2 years ago. In fact, that theory is still out there. Because it was kind of fun to find about it. Was like the video for that theory, like right the day after I saw it, or the day that I saw that theory floating up on my YouTube feed. And I was on my YouTube page, and I was like, I don't know why, because I don't remember looking up anything for Star Wars at that time, but yet there it was. But I still hadn't watched it.
Right. So basically, what just to fill in some of the blanks that we just left, the Zori Bliss gives Poe a challenge coin. I mean, a First Order Captain's Medallion, and they use that to they put that as in the slot machine part of the ship. And they able to gain access to the Imperial or the First Order flagship.
I was it was like an easy pass, but yeah, basically the same thing.
Basically, they're able to get back and recapture the Falcon and save Chewie, and they also try to reclaim the dagger. And that's when Rey and Kylo have their lightsaber battle from very far away from each other.
Yeah, that whole thing with that part of the now granted, like I don't know that's probably the one thing that's weirdly bothering me about that use of the Force,
right? Because
as we have seen specifically the last movie, like that kind of interaction, well, one, those are the only two who has ever had that interaction.
Yes.
One, and two, anything similar to that has caused loss of life or was done after life was lost,
right?
Or becoming one with the Force.
Yeah, as in Force Ghost.
Right. So the fact that it's happening, telepresence is happening, with real-time presence, well, I guess for lack of a better words, like that.
Right, with like a corporeal aspect to it, where people can feel each other and strike each other down.
Exactly. And that comes across a couple of other times in the movie, to some effect.
Right.
But
so the dagger, the dagger's calling to Rey, and Rey is like, oh, she touches it. Oh, she finds out who she is and where she comes from.
And it gets confirmed by Kylo.
There it is. And let's see.
Wait, let's go ahead and say it. So we come to find out that Rey is Emperor Palpatine's granddaughter.
Right. And Rey's parents somehow were begotten by the Emperor. So we know that Chief Palpatine had a beach house on Naboo.
Well, yes, I think we talked about a little bit after our last show. It was like, well, clearly this had to happen before he just went all fully Sith. Like when he was still in the Senate and being conniving around that point. So, because as multiple people have said online, there's no way in the world Palpatine's having sex.
Right. Well, see, what's funny is that you got to remember what bothers me. I'm going to put a pause right on our recap here and just do this quick point. What bothers me about this is Mace starts the process of turning Sheev into the Emperor by reflecting the Force lightning back on him, and we'll get back to that later. But
right, because that's something. Yes,
if you count the years, when is he having sexual relations with anybody?
Again, it was before that. It had to be.
But then, how old is Rey?
That's another point of contention. That is another point.
Is she in her 40s at this point?
Well, as we have found out from Solo and just and what's not, time's weird.
I know. I'm just saying. So,
but yeah, no, it's a valid thing to bring up. Which I think, now that I think about it, there is an article. If it's not in our sheet, then it's I know I have it in one of the sheets that basically goes through that, or speculates, I should say, not necessarily goes through that, because it's all speculation at this point.
Sure. So, who's it? So yeah. So at that point, let's see, where are we now? We get the new revelation. Blah blah blah.
Yeah, they get Chewie. They escape from the ship. We find out who the traitor was, and they get dealt with, and we find out the reasonings for being a traitor, which was real petty and real stupid. But
right.
Which come to find out, this was the thing. That one did not surprise me, because I was like, we know. So the traitor, aka the spy, ended up being General Hux. And as you know, General Hux did not like Kylo for no two put, and that is basically the reason why he ended up being the spy.
Yeah, this is basically revenge for being choked out.
And and being the pet,
right.
And being the teacher's pet at that point. But he gets his very shortly afterwards, so that's the point. You know, which also remind me at that point, whom we didn't see this movie.
Who's that?
Phasma.
Right.
Presumably, she may or may not have made it past that last fight with Finn. Maybe, or it could be a Boba Fett situation where it's like, yeah, she survived, but she could come back some other time. But I was kind of expecting to have a round 3 with her and Finn, but didn't happen.
Right.
Anyway.
Right. So at this point, the group is like, all right, we're going to go to, I think at this point, do they have a Wayfinder? Or, oh, no, I remember now. Because they get the dagger, and the dagger leads them to the other moon of Endor, Kef Bir.
Right.
And run into, and they meet whatchamacallit? They meet an ex-stormtrooper named Jenna, who is a resistance sympathizer who shows them the remains of the second Death Star.
Right. Which also is a point that which brings up a point that I kind of had to think. It was like, why do black people got to be the ex-stormtroopers though? The only other couple of stormtroopers. Now, granted, yes, Han Solo was an Imperial traitor. I got that, whatever. But don't at me about that. That was just something I was like, huh, interesting.
Gotcha. I definitely understand. We have Rey looking for the Wayfinder in the wreckage of the second Death Star when Kylo comes.
Yep.
And
the battle.
Yeah, and they duke it out. This is another big scene from the trailer where they're fighting in on floating wreckage, basically, of the Death Star.
Mm-hmm.
And
during this big fight, of course, we get some, I guess you could say, unexpected help in the way of one General Leia Organa.
Yes.
Who reaches out to her son and basically turns the tide of the battle, and to which and this is when it starts getting really weird, as if it wasn't already.
I was about to say it was already really weird.
Yeah, basically. But so the battle was won. Rey ran through Kylo and then ends up saving him through force healing.
Yes,
which is
a canon now.
Well, yeah, there was. So and the only other place that it has shown up outside of here and Clone Wars, I believe. Excuse me, Mandalorian, and to some limited effect, possibly Clone Wars, but I can't remember. But regardless, was actually a video game.
Exactly. I mean, the ability of force healing had been in the EU stuff before, but in terms of the Disney canon, this basically confirms it. But the Mandalorian had it, like the episode that premiered the week of Rise of Skywalker also had force healing.
Yeah,
exactly, and that was the tie between the alleged tie between the two. That was being teased in the lead up to both the movie and the 7th episode of the first season of The Mandalorian. So let's see. So Rey guts him, but uses the force healing and takes.
Which we should point out. Force healing takes your life away, or excuse me, can potentially take away your life force. You definitely use some of your life essence in order for this process to happen.
Right.
So she's basically essentially using her life energy to save his, which comes back into play later on.
Right. So she boosts his ship. I don't know if it was a TIE fighter or not.
It was a TIE, yes.
All right. So she boosts his ship and takes herself back.
Before that. So she goes into the wreckage to get this wayfinder, which was in presumably Vader's old quarters or the Emperor's old quarters, one of the two. I can't remember. Right. Kylo kills that notion by destroying it. When in the midst of their battle, or at least before they have their battle, then cut to the battle. Then that happened. Then she takes off in this TIE fighter because she did not. Now that wayfinder's gone, there was no way to find out where the Emperor was, except for the fact that there was two made, and the one that we saw earlier that Kylo got was hooked up to his TIE fighter
as a GPS unit,
basically.
So
and Rey ends up finding just in the midst of her flying off, finds this out really quickly, and makes her way over to Exegol.
Right. No, but first she makes a trip to Octo.
That's correct.
Right. So her trip is to Octo because she's just shaken by her Sith lineage. And she's all emo. She's taking on Kylo's personality.
she actually basically did what Luke did. She was like, okay, I'm all distraught about what's happening, so I'm just gonna, jet away from everybody to Octo. The difference here being, is what ends up happening after that.
Right. Well, essentially, she's about to chuck Anakin's then Luke's old lightsaber into the fire that she started to just blow up everything. And
she not necessarily like in the same way Chewie did with Starkiller Base after Han died, but in a similar matter, it was like, all right, screw everything, just all the way.
Right. But Luke Force Ghost comes out and says, "Hey, you shouldn't do that with the Jedi's weapon."
Exactly. And it makes sense because it was his and it was father's for that, even despite the baggage with it. Hey, like you throwing away somebody else's property, that's not cool.
Right. Oh, we also forgot. I was about to say we also forgot to mention that Kylo has whatchamacallit? A bit where after he's healed up, talks with a memory, not a Force Ghost.
Yeah, which is another thing that was like really stupid because obviously during the course of the fights and his mom kind of reaching out to him, which basically ends, makes her ones with the Force and ends her life.
Right.
Or confirms the end of her life, I guess. It was like because she was seemingly whatever happened in the earlier that movie doesn't really matter. But so he gets visited by a memory, which doesn't make any kind of sense, of his dad, that being Han Solo, who he killed in Force Awakens.
Exactly.
And they have the memory should not. So here's my thing about that. If it was a memory in the way we know memories, you wouldn't be talking in the present. Normally, things in the Star Wars universe that talk in the present is a Force Ghost.
Right.
Solo was not Force sensitive at all, so therefore he would not have been. He wouldn't have been one with the Force. So this whole thing was just ridiculous.
Yeah, it definitely messes with your understanding of how the universe works in the Star Wars continuity. Getting back to our little recap, um
Oh, and he chucks that his crossover after his talk with this memory, because
right.
just like he said in Force Awakens, he has something to do, but he doesn't know if he's strong enough to do it. Which the first time he ends up killing his dad. This one he just chucks his crossover and then goes off to where we end up finding him later on.
Right. Just to finish the recap of what happens on Octo, Luke's Force Spirit talks to Rey and tells her about Leia's Jedi training, and basically reveals that Leia had done everything, including train with a lightsaber, and gives her a second saber to wield, as well as his old X-wing that he raises from the deep.
Which I chuckled at this part, because if we remember Empire Strikes Back, he could not do it himself or to save his life.
Right.
Yoda ended up having to do it. So the fact that he was doing it this way, and the smirk he kind of gave as he was raising it out, was felt like just a callback to that. He was like,
absolutely.
Yeah. Like, hey, I finally do it, even though I'm a Force ghost and not necessarily alive. You know.
So, I mean, it was probably something that he would have wanted, he would have ended up doing had he had things kind of panned out a little differently during the movie. During the Return of the Jedi.
Presumably, he probably did it to put it in the water in the first place, because it's not like he just,
it's not like he landed in the water, let it sink, and then swam up.
Right.
It doesn't make a lot of sense.
Right.
So, let's see. That's moving along. So we have some bad guy stuff happening. Telling everyone to join him on Exegol. Basically, they have a Star Destroyer destroy Kijimi with its super laser in the belly.
Right. Presumably ending the life of Felicity, which we come to find out was not the case at all.
Righto.
But going back to the Octo thing real quick, I was like, I'm slightly surprised that we did not get a visit from Yoda.
That's true.
But
Luke is kind of playing.
Rey wouldn't necessarily known who he was, but at the same time, we haven't. It's not like this first time we haven't seen Force Ghosts roll up together.
Right.
So, but anyway.
So, all of our action now is moving to Exegol, because Rey is transmitting her location to the Rebel fleet, and they basically follow.
Not this. Well, yeah, I guess I never mind, because it's a moot point, because she wasn't necessarily. She didn't necessarily put it out there. It's basically the thing had a tracker on it anyway, and R2 was where like, hey, I see this old signal I hadn't been sending in a while. That can't be right. So,
no, my understanding was that she was sending it. My understanding is that she was sending it, and it was being identified as Luke's old X-wing. Because I think
that's the end of the beginning.
Right. I think the line was from 3PO, where he said, "Oh, you're receiving a transmission from Luke Skywalker."
Right.
And then they clarified it that it's his old X-wing.
Right. And then everybody else was basically like, hey, well, there's our way, because she's heading that way. And I think there was something earlier in the movie that basically says like, hey, they'll find a way. There was going to be the way to find a way there, and this was it.
Right.
There was some allusion to kind of this happening early in the movie.
Right. Whatchamacallit? So Rey's on Exegol. She's confronting Palpatine, who looks like he's a little bit of like Mojo from the X-Men comics, where he's got like a whole bunch of like a metal spine, like carrying him around on a seat or something.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, strike me down, and all of the spirits from the Sith that I have are gonna flow into you. Ha 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 ha. And that's his plan. That's his big plan. And he sicks the Knights of Ren on Kylo, who's apparently in pursuit.
Right. So that was so that was the thing that also was kind of weird to me. So because the one we didn't mention in the beginning of this was that Palpatine sent Kylo after Rey to kill her, mind you, knowing that this is his granddaughter. But come to find out, this was his grand plan as to why that was the case, which again does seem kind of silly, but it actually makes more sense than trying to get over to the dark side, which we Well, nice. I mean, that's been done basically, and hasn't quite worked out in other fashions.
Right.
But yes, so the grand plan was basically to kill her and take over her body or something.
Have her sit as the Empress.
No, excuse me. I'm sorry. No. So if he couldn't get her, no. Well, he wanted Kylo to kill her, which would have basically, as what ended up happening, give him life back in some sort of way. It's weird. It makes very.
Yeah, I mean, my understanding was that she wanted that Palpy wanted her to kill him, and
Right.
and all of the powers that were in him would go into Rey. But then what happens?
Same time, like I said in the beginning of the movie, he wanted Kylo to kill her for whatever reason.
Right.
So either way, would have probably benefited his plan, I guess.
Right. So ultimately, what ends up happening is that they figure out, oh, we can take them on together. But Rey and Kylo, now Ben Solo, I guess people started calling him Ben Solo once he was force healed, and General Leia basically gave the last of her life force to turn him.
Right.
So Kylo Ben, let's call him Kylo Ben, not Kylo Ren.
Sure.
So Kylo Ben and Rey are fighting against Palpy, and I forget who gets Leia's lightsaber. I think oh no, this is where they do the transferring of the lightsaber.
Yes.
The teleporting of the lightsaber, basically.
Yes, because he's fighting the knights and she's fighting Palpatine, or she's in the throne room, whatever, with Palpatine, and then during whatever ceremony that she relented to, or seemingly relented to, she passed off the lightsaber to Ben.
Right.
And he basically takes out his own people. And comes to join Rey. Who, yes, and now that I think about it, I'm trying to remember whose saber did he have. I'm thinking he might have had
Leia's.
Luke's. No, I think she had Leia's and he had Luke's / Anakin's.
Okay. All right.
I think, but I don't remember right off the bat.
I mean, that's something that we could, if when we have video access, we could stop, freeze frame it and see for sure. Because
actually, I can do that, but it would take a second, so I'm not going to do that right now.
Designs, but the designs I think are distinctive enough that you could tell.
Correct. Which, I hope they put Leia's saber on some.
It will be. It has to be.
Yeah, because that would be ridiculous if they didn't.
It has to be. That's going to be on sale as a toy and or something that you can get at what is it? The Galaxy
plan, basically. Yeah, that I would think so.
Yes. What do they call Star Wars World in Disney World again?
Galaxy's
Edge.
Yeah.
Galaxy's Edge. That's it.
Same both places. But yeah, so hopefully they would have that hilt and whatnot to on sale. So if anybody's been there and can confirm that, which I imagine being that the movie just came out, it would probably just be coming out.
Right.
Right.
So just to try to head down the home stretch of our little recap, Rey and Kylo Ben are having their life forces absorbed by Palpy. They're being called the dyad as a duo in the Force, and Palpatine is using a big cast of Force lightning to disable the Resistance fleet above Exegol.
Yeah, the only thing he doesn't do is like Storm from the X-Men animated series is just call it out.
Right. So then
the lightning flows.
So at some point during this battle, Palpatine force throws Kylo Ben down a shaft because that doesn't kill anybody.
Apparently, yeah. So and if that's not a familiar thing, so who knows? Like that was basically kind of petty, also, because it's like, okay, yes, your granddad threw me down a shaft,
right?
So I'm gonna go back and do it to you,
righto. So at this point, Rey's down and out. She's trying to figure out what to do, and this is when the Force comes through with the big assist. The living Force comes through with the big assist.
And this is when
The cosmic Force comes through with the big assist.
right, and this is when a revelation happened to me shortly after the movies, which I will get to in a little bit, but about something that happens in another place. Anyway, so yeah, so the big assist comes. Jedi's of the past come through, gives her a nice little pep talk, and she rises up much like Goku after there's too many references. Never mind. But anyway, she rises back up. She gets somehow gets well, no, because the other lightsaber was around her somewhere. So she has one lightsaber. She's Palpatine force lightnings, because that's his one big trick.
Sure,
holding them off with one saber, and much like Tony Stark in Endgame, which I really hate these
parallels.
I really hate these parallels, but they're so close. You know, Palpatine says like something, and then she's like, "I am Rey." Or no, she doesn't say that, but she says, "I am one with the Force," or something like that.
Right.
And then just grabs the other Force, grabs the other lightsaber and cross sabers it and fends off. Not only fends off Palpatine, but just blows him just completely to smithereens.
Right. So this is what I was mentioning earlier, the continuation of Mace Windu's actions against Palpatine, transforming him into what's that?
His facelift.
Right, exactly. Transforming him into the face that we knew and hated. And essentially you would think that Palpatine would have learned something since that encounter way back in Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, guard your face.
Stop shooting force lightning at someone who's blocking it and shooting it back at you.
Or if you're going to do it, stop, faint them out, and then shoot them again when they get feigned out. I don't know.
Right. I don't know. Like, what are you doing? You're killing yourself.
Right.
Whatever. So
I guess the quote unquote logic of it was like, well, since he was already in mid stroke and it was already come back, he couldn't just stop himself. I don't know. That missed at all.
I mean, because it's not like, remember when Dooku threw force lightning at Yoda?
Yes.
Right? Yoda just caught it and threw it back at him. No,
sure,
different. Yeah. This is different.
Right. Anyway. Blocked it with, which I'm pretty sure may not be the first time force lightning has been blocked by a saber, but I cannot remember at this point.
What do you mean, Mace?
Well, but I mean, other than that, yes.
Well, I mean, that's a big one.
I mean, you're right. I'm not discounting that, but I'm just saying I feel like there was another place where that something like that similar happened, and it probably was Yoda. No, I'm thinking about it. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Oh, it was Yoda. I think it was Yoda.
Yeah,
I think it was Yoda, because I think it was Yoda against Dooku, and then Yoda against the Emperor in Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah, so Yoda uses the saber. Yoda uses the saber. I may have misspoken about Yoda catching the force lightning and throwing it back. I think that was against Palpatine in Sith.
I don't remember at this point. You might have been right the first time, but at this point, regardless, something like that does happen.
Exactly, it happens in the prequel trilogy. So, Rey in the sacrifice of the trilogies, the effort to finally take out Emperor Palpatine without having Anakin cut you down. We know what happened, Mace. Anakin cut you down. So Rey is successful in completing.
I still think he lived personally.
Ooh, Mace?
Yes. Well, he got thrown over the window. Like we don't see his body.
Yeah, but didn't he get like sliced up? Well, then again, so
no, he got his hand. I think he got the hand cut off, just like since that happened. But he didn't get.
So did Maul.
Yeah,
but
so he could have potentially made it.
Right. So, whatchamacallit? So in the effort to do all this, Rey goes down, and Kylo Ben picks her up and basically force heals her. And the effort to force heal her from this huge injury, this huge effort, this huge spiritual wound, really, essentially causes him to sacrifice himself.
Yes, and and at the end he caught a big kiss, because he's been wanting to do that for the whole time, just like messy people of bullying, not necessarily bullying, but there's that relation. There's a problem with that relationship, but we won't get into it right now.
Right. And one of the things that bothered me the most in this movie happens at this point. Once they kiss, General Leia Organa's body.
Right.
We think she's been dead for a while. Just now becomes one with the cosmic force, the same time that Kylo Ben becomes one with the cosmic force.
Right. As soon as he kisses her and he dies, or he dies, then Leia's body, which was under a sheet half the time because she had passed away from the previous attempt to well, basically that would have been
to turn Kylo Ben.
Right. So she disappears, he dies. Yeah, that part right there was like, that's weird as hell.
I'm like, why did that happen then?
Right.
You know, I'm sure there is an explanation. The explanation I thought of was that the little bit of life force that Leia put into Kylo Ben finally expired as well.
Sure.
That caused her corporeal body to finally join with the force.
You know what? That's about as much sense as we're probably ever going to get about that.
Right. So
that ends up happening, and then Rey wakes up and she's all better now.
Right. And so whatchamacallit, in the meantime, we had,
before you say that, here's the thing that really bothered me about that. They spent the 3 movies trying to kill each other.
Right.
And yes, you could tell there was something there. Like, at the time, you didn't know if it was incestuous, or whatever the case may be, because we didn't know anything about her parentage or whatever the case may be.
Right.
But like, you spend 3 movies trying to kill each other, and one person talking about, no, you need to come with me. The only way for you to live is to come with me. That's me paraphrasing. You should come with me. You should come with me. Basically, it was like, okay, you need to calm down, dude. And now all of a sudden, like, we just kiss.
Yeah.
Even though, yes, you saved my life, but like, okay, you don't need to kiss. Like, that was just
right. So in the meantime, the resistance forces are doing their best to take out this gigantic magical fleet of Star Destroyers.
Mm-hmm.
And
in some kind of highway, we don't, where they got all this extra manpower from, we don't know. But
no idea.
The Empire's recruitment must be hella strong or something.
I was about to say, there's somebody stupid rich on Canto Bight right now because of that stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Some employment agents, it's like, we get you done real quick, and you just there's these these
someone made money off of building all those Star Destroyers.
Right.
So, but yeah, so the rest of the resistance, right? The rest of the resistance forces are trying to take out this huge fleet of Star Destroyers with the belly cannons, and they've got little horsies to do it.
Oh, right. Yeah. So yeah, I guess we should go back just a slight second to when the whole Rey Palpatine thing and Kylo basically trying to join the battle. This whole scene that Agent 70 is describing has been happening, and much like what was happening in Return of the Jedi, it wasn't going the way of the Resistance right off the bat, especially since the whole Force lightning thing that Palpatine did. But since that got taken care of, they were still fighting a losing battle, and it was only let's say a handful. It wasn't necessarily a handful, but for the sake of relativity, a handful of fighters and whatnot against this whole big behind fleet.
Right.
Until so earlier mission was which we forgot to mention was
there's a couple things we forgot to mention. Hold on to that thought. We forgot to mention that R2, steady, reliable, dependable R2, not
much in this movie at all.
Not as cute as BB-8, neglected in this movie, as Roddy Cat just mentioned, restores 3PO's memory.
Yes, which bothered me to no end, because I was like, okay, you can, which like I said earlier, like, you're gonna do something and then just take back.
Unreal. So you were saying before about
It also makes sense because it's like, because that even came up during the time because they even asked 3PO. It was like, haven't you ever had R2 back up your memory? And R2, I mean, and CPO was like, yeah, he's unreliable basically, which apparently not as unreliable as he
not
thought.
that unreliable.
So, which R2, come on, who's gonna say R2 is unreliable?
Yeah, that's
throughout the whole 3 trilogies.
The treatment of R2 specifically in this episode.
Hell, in this set of trilogies at all, but yes.
Right. But specifically in this episode really bothered me. I understood him shutting down, but this really bothered me.
Right. Like,
but you're saying
Archie has always been clutch the whole time, and
right.
You don't give him nothing to do. Even BB-8, who was the basically the leading droid in this trilogy, they didn't give him that much to do. But whatever. Like R2's MVP, always and forever.
Seriously,
didn't give him much to do in this one. So, anyways, but like I was saying, there was a mission in the planning of this main mission to go take a strike at this fleet. Another side mission was basically Lando and Chewie in the Falcon going to put a call out to all systems, basically put another call out, and again, much like Ezra did in Rebels, to say, hey, if we got any friends out there, we could really use some help because we got this thing going on that we need any fighters we can. So it was looking really bleak during the course of this battle until the cavalry ends up arriving, much like what happens in these movies.
Right.
And Lando was like, because Poe was like, yeah, we're not going to be able to do this. We're not going to be able to do this. And then Lando comes in and says, like, we got this. Or I can't remember what he exactly says, but basically he comes across the cons and, gives folks hope and a whole bunch of other ships, possibly including the Ghost, which I still don't remember seeing.
Who was there?
Yeah.
The Ghost was there. We don't know if Admiral or Captain. I think she's an Admiral.
She was General. No.
Oh, General. That's right. She's General Hera Syndulla. But we don't know where Jason Syndulla is. We don't know where Sabine is, although there is a hint about some stuff that might be happening in The Mandalorian.
Oh, I see. Oh, yes.
You saw it. You're caught up, right?
I am caught up, and I did see. Yes.
Right.
I did see that.
There's a hint about Mandalorian stuff this week, but
we can assume the Ghost was there. Then all hands was on deck with
whoever was there, right? But Zeb is on what Lyris.
Oh, that's right. Because
they kind of split up after Return of the Jedi, basically. So, but anyway, hold on. So so the fleet comes and they help out, and everybody celebrates on various planets.
Right. So during the course of the battle, Finn and Janna on the horses that you previously mentioned.
That's right. I forgot about the horses.
Yeah. So they took a strike on. They were like, okay, well, clearly this is the only way to do this. So they took some horses, took a transport, went onto the Star Destroyer because their plan was to knock out the radio that was basically guiding the other Star Destroyers out of the system, which that is a very poor way to, even just like in Last Jedi, like how are you going to have this just one Star Destroyer be the main thing that because in Last Jedi they had this one Star Destroyer had this one thing that could track the rebels through hyperspace. Why would you not put that in all of them? Why? And in this same case, so basically the original thing was like there was this pylon that was basically the thing that's guiding them out of the system because the systems were treacherous. Well, the Empire pretty much killed that plan because they shut off the pylon, and they had it on their main ship. The main ship was going to take everybody out of the system, and then the resistance was like, okay, well, we got to change plans. We go over to the ship and do the same thing we're going to do to this other thing. And they end up doing that, and the Empire was like, "Oh, we need to switch the thing over. We need to switch that over." It didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
So, and to kind of end that all off, well, they kill the radio by basically killing the ship. The ship goes down with with Finn and Janna still on it because they wanted to make sure that the things wasn't going to happen. So everybody else, including Rose Tico, who we do see but didn't really get to say much of anything, told everybody to go. They got this. They take care of that.
Mm-hmm.
They basically go down with the ship until Poe tries to get him on his tries to reach him on his X-wing, which I don't know how you was going to do that with an X-wing, but and until Lando swoops in with the Falcon and was like, "Yeah, you ain't that fast, kid. I got this." So he picks him. So he picks him up. They fly off right as the Star Destroyer hits the ground, and they kind of they get away. And this is when everybody starts to celebrate.
There you go. I just blanked out over all that stuff. I was like, oh, whatever.
Yeah, some of that stuff was like, huh, yeah. But
Yeah.
that stuff, like, again, all of this is coming from memory. So, as much as I can remember.
Sure.
But yeah, so this is when the celebration starts. And matter of fact, I wanted to say something to Agent 70 because I believe, and I meant to go back and confirm this, but you asked me the week or two if one of the places that they were shown in the celebration was Lothal, and I think you might be right.
And what's funny about that is I think it's Bespin.
I thought about that too, but it doesn't look like, because we both kind of said that, but the buildings, like, well, granted, like Coruscant, Lothal, Bespin, the
dome looking building
of the buildings are kind of similar.
Right.
I don't know. There's some comfort. Like I said, we'll have to go back and confirm that.
Right, exactly. We'll find out.
Coruscant, but you didn't see none of the other buildings around. But during my Rebels rewatch, it just looks like that one building that shows up early in the first season.
Right.
First couple seasons, that just kind of looks like the big Legion of Doom type building.
Exactly. It's funny that that's been kind of sticking in our craws for our respective craws for a while. Like,
right, because usually at the end of every trilogy they would go, or excuse me, as of the special editions, that you can see celebrations going on in different places, and you see Naboo and other places at Ewok. They even took a return. Obviously, they were on a moon of Endor, so you see some Ewoks kind of show up, and then kind of other places that they'll end up showing. It's like, hey, this place, or whatever the case may be. So usually it's Coruscant, which, like I said, that's what kind of made me think of that. But at the same time, you didn't see other, Coruscant is a big bustling city, big ass cities type thing. So you didn't really see some of the other buildings. So that's why I kind of I'm thinking you might have been right about Lothal, which was weird because you would think they would have gone to Coruscant for something like that, unless Coruscant. Well, granted, I think something may have happened to Coruscant. They didn't blow up Coruscant, I don't think, but regardless, we see celebrations at other place, and at the end of this, just kind of wrap this all up.
And you're expecting to hear Kool and the gang in the background. Celebrate good times. Come on. All right.
Exactly. So yeah, the Resistance is destroyed. The celebrations happen. Rey basically, to cap this all off, ends up going back to Tatooine, burying Luke's and Leia's lightsabers near Luke's old aunts and uncle's place, which is still they haven't done anything because it's been burnt down.
Well, they took the bodies of Uncle.
Well, taken
away.
Well, yeah, but it's also been X amount of years. So if they didn't take the bodies away, they were cleaning up the bodies in New Hope. So that's beside the point. So that was already where it was. Buried the bodies, and she just looks off into the sunset. Some old lady just happens to come by.
You mentioned buried the lightsabers, right?
Yeah, after she buried the lightsabers, yes.
Gotcha.
Some old lady just happens to come along, which I thought at first this lady is supposed to be, because mind you, Luke's aunts and uncles was kind of out there, even for Tatooine standards, which is also kind of funny given watching The Mandalorian and Mos Eisley, but that's a whole nother situation we don't have to get into. And this old lady asks her, basically says, hey, there's nobody ever been out in a while, what's your name? And then she looks out in the distance, thinks about it, Rey, and of course she gives her last name, which she's never had before, of Skywalker.
And she also
not, but still.
Right. And she also is wielding a lightsaber of her own design and making.
Right. Which is basically denoting, hey, she has become full Jedi, because absolutely one of the last things you do when you become full Jedi is you make your own lightsaber.
Where does she get the kyber crystal? Big question.
I know, right? Like, where did she get that? So, and there's also of note on that point, it is a yellow crystal. It is a yellow saber,
right? Which,
from what I've just seen over another video, and it kind of confirms what I thought. There's not too many people that has ever had a yellow crystals. Like, I've seen it in video game form in Old Republic, which it does have some, even in EU, I believe, goes back to something like that. But from what I understand from the video that I saw, most of the people who has had yellow lightsabers have been sensible, like basically temple guardians.
Right. That's exactly. They're for sentinels. People who are kind of consular Jedis. They're like half consular, which is green, and half I forget what's the blue, like the warrior.
Yeah,
the Guardian style, which is blue, so they're basically half and half. So they come out with a yellow or gold saber blade.
Yellow is, right, and supposedly yellow is like the purest, quote unquote, the purest. And even as the Templar users had, from what I saw in the thing, those were passed down, and it's very rare that there has been a lightsaber that has been made with a yellow lightsaber. So there's a couple of different things going on with that.
Right. Okay. So before we move on into our favorite scenes in the movie, I think I'm just going to do a quickie ad read because I meant to do this right at the beginning of the show. So I'm just going to take a moment here to do our quickie ad read. It's going to be Amazon. Keep our podcast free by shopping at Amazon. Visit cspn.us, then click the Keep Our Podcast Free link at the top of the page. From there, scroll down and click on the Amazon link to shop. Purchase items from Amazon as you normally would, whether it's books, music, electronics, jewelry, apparel, graphic novels, etc. For every purchase made on Amazon through our link, Amazon sends the CSPN a payment that helps us keep the Comic Book Chronicles podcast free for our listeners at no extra cost to you. Amazon.com through CSPN.us. Do it today. All right. So we've got our first ad read out of the way. We're going to move into some of our favorite scenes in the movie. You may have heard us talk about them already, but I definitely had as a favorite scene that Chewie gets his medal on screen.
Yes. Which was slightly unexpected, because if you don't really think about it, especially after all the time. Like, yes, if you remember the scene in New Hope, everybody gets their medals. Chewie doesn't get one, presumably, at least I was thinking at the time, presumably because he's big and hairy and couldn't fit around his neck. But apparently he just never got one, right. which was a gross oversight. But he finally got it now
on screen. They did it in the comics. They did something in the comics, but seeing it on screen was huge. I clapped very briefly, but no one else joined me in clapping, so I just stopped.
Mine did. They still put it around his neck. They just handed it to him, but nevertheless, it still works.
Right. I clapped in the theater. No one else joined me, so I just did like a quick clap. I didn't hear anybody else, so I was like, screw you guys. I was so mad at this. I was seriously so mad at this that nobody else clapped that I almost jumped up and slaughtered the theater like Anakin versus the Tusken Raiders, the women and the children too.
The opinions of the host of are not the ones that we don't condone going around slaughtering younglings and people, even if you don't like sand.
I'm telling you, I was so heated. All right, another one of my favorite moments. Well, you go. Do you have a favorite moment you wanted to?
Well, I would definitely agree with the Chewie one. Okay. But yeah, you go ahead and give you another one.
Okay. Well, some of the voices that were included in the Jedi support group that Rey calls upon.
Well, so that brings me to something else I'll bring up in a minute. Not necessarily it was a revelation that at this point that's kind of bummed me out for a second. But anyway, right. Yeah.
Well, the fact that we get, I was about to say, the fact that we get some of our favorite cartoon Star Wars characters showing up as voices is great. Specifically, Ahsoka Tano.
Actually, so I'm go ahead and say this right now. So I, as Agent 70 knows, I'm doing a rewatch of Star Wars Rebels.
Being slow. You're being slow about it.
I'm not being slow. I'm just being moved. Anyway, I have not watched season 4 at all. But I have been spoiled on something that happened. Like I know Kanan dies, right. Or becomes one. I forgot what, and they go off on their merry ways at the end. There was one little point that was brought up in the end of season 2, I believe it was, where Vader and Ahsoka fought and both presumably perished, which obviously did not happen, or at least one of them did not happen during the course of their fight under a temple. And I don't know, I don't remember. I'm fairly certain in season 3 they never really brought it up that I remember. But regardless, if they brought it up,
resolved in season 4, you just haven't gotten to it yet.
Correct. So I know that was resolved in a certain way, which brings me to the point that all of the voices that were heard at that moment are from Jedi who are one with the Force, which pretty much bums me out because it answers the questions that I've had about that.
A question
kind of back and forth, which was the question of whether Ahsoka's alive or not
at this point in the continuity.
So now, granted, that couldn't be saying like yeah, they could have not. Again, I haven't. I don't know how they resolved it in season 4, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the time frame doesn't settle that whatever happened there was happened then. But at the same time, it still ends up saying, well, clearly she's one with the Force, so she's not around anymore, which was a bummer to me.
Another thing that I liked I actually liked the multiple shorter saber battles that they had in this. They had a whole bunch of saber battles between, and even though we didn't like the idea of the Force time saber battle, the battles themselves were actually pretty good.
Yes, they were well choreographed, so that was pretty good. But yeah, they did kind of shorten them up for that, which is good because, like, yes, they kind of blew their wad on that one big battle at the end of Last Jedi. So kind of going back on that again would probably be a little bit much, even though it's 2 different people doing it. Excuse me, sorry. So let me see. Another favorite scene of the movie. There was a part of this I liked it because it's potentially means that there's hopefully more stories to come from this.
Right.
But it's also a weird one because it's like near the end of the movie, Jana and Lando meet, and she's basically coming up to him like, "So where are you from?" Lando being the black dude on the thing, and her being black herself, which kind of slightly doesn't matter in this context because they're all aliens. But ask her where he's from, as if to say, "Are you my dad?" type of situation. That's the way I'm taking it anyway. But so, and Lando's like, where are you from? So like, I don't know, I'm from this one place, whatever. So they basically was like, well, let's find out where you're from. And she smiles, and then the scene cuts. And there's also the big lesbian kiss that was there. That was fun to see because that was something you don't get to see in a movie like this.
Right. I think.
And the cameos, because we saw Lin-Manuel come.
I didn't even see him on screen. It was funny.
Yeah, he was there. You see him.
I did.
Find out there was another character that we talked about that did also show up that I didn't think showed up on this one, and that was the one that, of course, being J.J. Abrams behind this, the one he created for Force Awakens, Elo Asti, which was a Beastie Boys reference.
Oh, he did. He was there.
Yeah, he was there.
Okay. We also forgot to talk about Dio, the stupid robot that J.J. Abrams
didn't really like you
said. He didn't do anything.
Yeah, he didn't really do anything. He was just there for being little and cute. Like,
oh, for God's sake. Just real quick, I wanted to mention that there was a line during the battle on Exegol where the Imperials are like, they're sending a boarding party, jam their speeders. They're not on speeders, they're on horsies.
Right.
So that was pretty cool. And one of my favorite scenes that wasn't a fun scene, but was heartbreaking, and it was really the only emotion that I actually felt during this entire movie, was Chewie's reaction to the news of Leia's passing. Even though
he broke down,
yeah. Oh my God, I was just like, oh my God. Like that one actually felt
like I'm with you, and he was like, "Yeah, leave me alone." I'm like,
yeah, he's like on his knees, he's pounding dirt. I was like, "Oh man, that's the one I felt."
Right, because the significance of that was more than just like, one. Obviously, he lost it when Han died, and that was his best friend. Luke. I don't even think he had even time to process that one with Luke, and then Leia, which was the last human. Outside of like say, that he's really been dealing with all this time. The only other people that's left are the droids.
Right.
So it was like pretty much all of the humans that he's had much dealing with this whole time is just gone now. And thinking about that, I was like, damn, it is kind of crushing, man.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, we know that Wookiees have very long lifespans.
Yes,
So this does happen to creatures of long lifespans. They do tend to lose lots of their closest friends.
Mm-hmm.
But that was, I think, the worst. The worst I felt during the movie. Probably the most emotional I felt after the initial fake death of Chewie.
Yeah.
And it's funny that it's not funny. It's actually telling. It's telling that for I would guess a large portion of the viewing audience that the most compelling moments had to do with Chewbacca.
Yeah, who doesn't freaking love Chewie? Like that's crazy people. That's who. That's like I get to meet a person and be like, no, I don't like Chewbacca. Like,
right.
Never.
Now here's the contra. Here's the contra of what we were just talking about. The favorite. We can mention a few of our least favorite scenes of the movie because this could go on forever.
I think, and weirdly enough, I'm going to reiterate the one that I said with Jenna and Lando because it kind of played off like, are you my dad type of situation? I'm like, really? Are you really doing that?
Right.
I think we're going to get to this more in a second, but the lack of screen time of Rose Tico,
yes,
was a problem.
Yeah, it's not even a scene; it's just a lack of scenes. Let's put it that way.
I don't know. We'll save that for favorite and worst characters. But
sure.
Yeah, there was a few things that's just kind of nitpicky about it. Like as a cinematically done, yeah, it was an all right movie. Like I'm thankful there was no actual Beastie Boys music played in this, which I would have to do that the story group was like, no, don't do that. But
I would have enjoyed it.
But he also snuck in that the reference that I just mentioned already. So
right. Well, I didn't like the fact that they put all the black characters together. I know you didn't have a big problem with it, but I did.
I didn't have that much of a problem with it because one, there's not many times where even much less sci-fi that you see that many black people in one place in a sci-fi movie,
right?
And, much less a big ass franchise as this,
right?
So for that respect, it was good to see. But I guess I can get what you're thinking, but I'm like, nah, I'm okay with that.
I got you.
Like it was weirdly enough, going back to Endgame, it was kind of like when they put all the women in the group in Endgame, like that was kind of a similar thing. If you think about it.
I guess. Although I think because the comic fans in us recognize that as a call to as a Easter egg for A-Force. I think maybe that's why we tolerate that a little bit more.
Yeah, at the same time, though, I mean, I agree with you there, but at the same time, I was like,
especially for the non-comic fans, I definitely see where you come, where we could see that.
Yeah.
I mentioned this earlier. I didn't like the fact that Leia's body didn't disappear right away, but we kind of gave our own no prize, our idea on that.
Yeah. It would have added to the movie and probably would have been not necessary, but I would have really loved to have seen Rey actually make her lightsaber. But like I said, that's a small part and just whatever.
Also, I didn't like the fact that R2 just like plugged and played and rebooted 3PO's memory after he gave us this "I'm looking at my friends for the last time" line. Come on.
Yeah, right. Yeah, similar to when Chewie, quote unquote, died in the transport. And now, actually, okay, if we talk about a scene that I didn't care about, so there was another transport.
Right.
Like, how would they not have seen that?
Right.
There was wide open space. Like, yes, I get it. Their focus was kind of over here, but at the same time, there's no way in the world they couldn't have been like, hey, there's this other one coming up. So we see Chewie get on this transport. We don't necessarily, I guess they're saying we don't necessarily see the transport that gets blown up, but we like they did this big ass setup was like, okay, they put Chewie on the transport. He's looking back. We see it taking off, or we see a transport taking off, and then the thing between Rey and Kylo at the time, and then all that happened, and it was like, oh no, there was another transport. Like, really? Like, granted, that is a trope that has happened in plenty of movies. Like, I can think, matter of fact, Raiders of the Lost Ark. Same thing happened with, Indy thought Marion had died on the back of that truck.
Didn't happen.
But still, I was like, really? That's kind of lame.
Yeah. So, yeah, we can move on to our next topic, which is what is your favorite character arc within the sequel trilogy?
I can tell you the one
That you don't like?
yeah.
Mine too. You can still mull over your favorite because I'm still thinking about who my favorite character arc, which character had the best character arc.
See, that's just it. The only one that actually really had an arc was Rey to a point. Like, really, Poe didn't change that much.
Right.
Finn had an arc, but his arc kind of went back and forth, which bothered me to no end. And even in the end of this, because like when he met up with Janet, it was like, wait, there was more people like me. It's like, yeah, and then she was like, like people know the story, just like much like Rose did when he met, but at the same time, when Rose met Finn, he was trying to run away,
right?
Which was the big thing about his arc. So basically, he was the scared person that was running away from the First Order, and then started to grow up and get balls up, near the end of the movie. But he also had this thing with slightly this real needy thing with Rey also, which was a thing that bothered me. But then Last Jedi, they made him start running again, and then you had to build him up. Then they had Rose Tico basically tried to save his life to try to build him up again. It was like, really? Like, he already had a trajectory by himself. He didn't really need that, but at the same time, that's what happened. And then this one, he was just kind of there, and basically
right, but for one important development, which is that it's essentially confirmed that he's force sensitive.
Well, there is that, sure, but
right. And that's the only thing that even redeems. Right, that's the only thing that even comes close to redeeming his character arc.
And it doesn't. But I mean, and I still hold to the fact that I think that's been something that they toyed with. Like, I know we had this conversation before,
right?
Off mic, but I feel like that's been something they've been toying with since Force Awakens.
Right, because he actually wields a lightsaber. It actually lands a hit on Kylo Ben.
Right.
So, I mean, but it wasn't as obvious because of what happened in Last Jedi.
I did. Maybe it's, again, like I said, maybe it's just me, but I feel like it kind of was. Like, yes, it wasn't as overt than this. You're right. But at the same time, it was there enough to where, like, you would put the two in there. Like, there was enough there in what he was feeling that whole time where that was the case. But yeah, this one just basically just put it on the wall. So yeah, in that respect, yes, he's got a decent arc, but at the same time, it doesn't really do him anything for his character.
Right.
Like, okay, for sensitive, that's great, but doesn't seem like he grew that much. Like, he basically he grew, he took a step back, he kind of sort of grew, but then just kind of kept on going from there.
This is kind of an indictment on the sequel trilogy that we were actually having some problems coming up with quality character arcs for these characters. Like coming up with our a way to coming up with a best of all of these character arcs for the sequel trilogy. It's pretty bad.
Right, like I said, the one main arc that you could kind of tell was Rey's, and that wasn't even then. That wasn't that much because, like, okay, we knew she was powerful. Like, we knew she was, she had the Force, but the only thing we really didn't know is that, her parentage.
Right. Well, what we had to figure out was why she had such a draw to the dark side, and that's what was teased in Force Awakens.
Right. So if anybody was going to have an arc, that is her. But at the same time, it was something that was going to get played if they were smart.
I was teased in Last Jedi. I'm sorry.
Yeah, which like that was going to bear out one way or the other. If they had said like, oh, she ain't got no parents or whatever the case may be, that would have even been worse. Now, the only thing about that was like that whole red herring about Kylo was like, yeah, your parents were nothing, which is not necessarily the truth, given that
it was more of an opinion rather than fact.
Right.
Yes, that's really what it turned out to be.
Right. So I was like, okay, you're basically the Emperor's son. And I can't remember who the mom was, but regardless, like, that's not nothing, regardless of whether you yourself did anything, But yeah, like you said, it's just more of an opinion than anything.
Right. Anyway. So that's actually the first part of our nitty-gritty discussion on what has become the main points of conversation surrounding this movie. Rey's parents finally being explained in the Rise of Skywalker, and the internet had its say.
Yeah, even though I pulled this article for that, I'm like, I didn't really look at it because the internet's kind of sucks sometimes.
Right. And we're not going to go into all of the things that people posted on the internet, but essentially everyone, as the internet is good, one of the good sides and the bad sides of the internet is that people can chime in on something that they feel strongly about.
Yeah.
And this was one of them.
I was actually kind of shocked. I am, well, as shocked as you could be for something like that, because like the prevailing theories were either she was a Skywalker, which thankfully that wasn't the case.
Right.
I was going with the theory that she was a Kenobi, which I'm not sure how that would have worked out. Well, I know kind of how that would have worked out, but we
were hoping that Satine and Obi-Wan got it going on. That's what we were hoping.
Yeah, basically. So, which still doesn't say that it couldn't have happened, but regardless,
shout out to the Clone Wars.
Exactly.
It is definitely worth revisiting, ladies and gentlemen.
Right, and given that, well, I mean, I don't know. There's weirdness in that because we know Obi-Wan is around up until A New Hope, and we can't imagine even if he did have offspring that he wouldn't have tried to check up on him at one point in time or something. I don't know, but the whole Palpatine thing was definitely I didn't, weirdly enough, and I don't think about it, I don't know if we know why it was, because that's the only other person of note. Like, it definitely wouldn't have been Yoda's.
Right.
He's got his own offspring. No, I'm just kidding.
That's a story for another time.
Yeah, a whole other thing. We'll probably talk about that during the next Chronicles, I guess.
Exactly.
So yeah, the Palpatine thing was pretty much a shock to me. I'm like, oh, all right. I like how that worked out. Kind of.
Gotcha. I understand. So the next thing that people have been talking about is the fact that Rey got a powerful new Jedi Master in Rise of Skywalker after the demise, or after Luke Skywalker became one with the Force. And that is, we've spoken about it before, but then again, it's still worth another drum roll because it made a lot of fans of Star Wars very happy. Jedi Master General Leia Organa.
Exactly. Yeah, I remember going into this when there's been some talk where they said they were going to do right by Leia, which according to some articles they still didn't exactly do all the way.
Right.
But this particular thing was pretty great to see. Like, yeah, we don't even get to see it. Excited it's taking us this long to see it, even with all the EU stuff that's been around, but them adhering to other things, like just seeing the fact that seeing her train Rey, 2, having her own lightsaber, which again is another story I would kind of want to see, but I'm pretty sure that'll probably bear out in a comic book at some point. Right. Like all of that was awesome.
Right. I mean, it kind of mirrored what happened to Luke, where he had to cut off his initial training in Empire because of the trap laid for him at Bespin in Cloud City, and then he ended up going back to Dagobah to train with Yoda in the interim between Empire and Jedi.
Right, only to have Yoda die in the process.
Exactly.
Well, actually was dying when he came back, regardless. Yeah.
Right.
So that actually brought up something else, because Force, when you become one with the Force, you're still around basically, which kind of had me thinking like, well, wait. And yes, at the beginning of the movie, she wasn't necessarily in touch with everybody that has become one with the Force, but at the same time, we know Luke was around. Right. So why couldn't we get another? Like, I was kind of shocked. I was like, well, even though he was around as a Force ghost, why didn't he train her? Like, I'm glad it was Leia, but it wasn't like he couldn't come to her, find his way to her, despite the only place that he came to her was on Octo, and be like, hey, you're doing this wrong.
Yeah, seriously.
You're distracted.
Seriously.
Drink some milk.
Seriously, jeez. So next up, This is something that I thought of. This movie, and I heard, I believe I heard other podcasts discuss this. This movie is filled with what are known as fetch quests in
Um,
video game verbiage.
yeah, I
That,
can't argue with that. That's
yeah,
basically. I mean, but if you think about any of the trilogy or any of the movies, they were basically been sent on a bunch of fetch quests or something like this. Yeah, if you think about it in RPG terms, yeah, it was a bunch of quests, whether either escort missions or fetch quests.
right. So, but this was just, let's get this GPS unit and let's get that GPS unit. And it was all about finding GPS units.
And let's go see if we can find some more people to fight for us, which was this and Last Jedi.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
lots of fetching to be done. At age
I
_70.
go on record that I am proud of Agent 70 for learning gaming terms.
Yes, that's what I was going to note. Thank you very much.
Even though I have said a couple of around in the past, but hey,
right. But you're one of the resident gamers. I'm definitely not one of the resident gamers. Let's put it that way.
Right.
So on this podcast, I am definitely the least likely to come up with a video game term. So,
and I believe there was, if I should have pulled that one. There was, speaking of the video game that is currently out, Jedi Fallen Order. I believe there may be some tie in there to Rise of Skywalker. I can't remember.
Okay.
And I haven't played the game yet. I know they put some stuff in Battlefront 2, but that's just like for the multiplayer. They might have even put something in Rise in the Fallen Order, but I can't remember. Like I said, one of these days I'm gonna play it really soon though. Because as a matter of fact, I came out of the movie basically saying I was gonna actually play that game. Anyway.
Right. So we get force healing introduced into Star Wars movie canon in this movie. It's a Jedi ability ever since we saw it in The Mandalorian the same week. And
has been, as Agent 70 said prior to, which we knew, or some folks knew, was in the EU.
Right.
The extended universe. So they basically pulled that out of EU and made it canon.
Right. So obviously at some point, no one at some point told Anakin about this. No one relayed this to him.
He was kind of singular in his thought patterns a lot of times. So
I'm just saying.
Well, technically he was told to an extent, however, in the wrong direction. Because if you recall, he wanted to if it wasn't in a comic book or something, he basically wanted to try to bring Padme back.
Right, Padme back, but that's several years later.
Force healing,
right?
In itself. But yeah, so he kind of was told about it, but just not.
Right. So because he's already thinking that Anakin, that Padme and Obi-Wan are getting it on behind his back. So, you turned him against me, but.
Which actually, yeah. So, and that even in itself, that brings up some questions. So now that I'm thinking about Clone Wars, if I'm not mistaken, around 5th season is when Obi-Wan learns about becoming a Force ghost, and I believe it's through. Is it through Yoda?
Yeah, it's through Yoda because Qui-Gon communicated with Yoda.
Yes, and they rapped about that. So I feel so. Going back to what you're saying, like, yeah, you would think that somebody would have, somebody else would kind of helped Anakin to that part about it, especially as many battles and whatnot they've dealt with, or Obi-Wan himself would have known about it because he did go on the quest to kind of learn that stuff, but they didn't tell him either, directly about that.
So, it's always weird, like, oh, they developed this new ability. They just developed this now after thousands of years of the Jedi Order.
Which no, it was exactly. Which no, because it was around. It's just that folks, they just held a whole lot of information back from you. A lot of stuff comes back from basically old Republic days.
Exactly.
So, not like the stuff was there. Even the books that Ray has, like basically, you might as well say comes from old Republic day because those are the old Jedi texts are just that old. So stuff was there, just that people didn't know. But at the same time, the way the Force was being used, particularly in this movie and the last couple of movies with the Skype calls, that part feels a little bit out of the range of, or at least a little bit out of the extension of the Force, but
Right.
yeah, it has been alluded to, just not that directly and not that finely tuned. Let's say.
Right. All right. So next up, I thought this was a heck of a time to introduce a brand new character, namely Janna. But I was wondering, will it lead to more stories, and where would or should the stories be told? And what I mean by that is film, comic, or Disney Plus show.
Probably, the best we could probably hope for is Disney Plus show, but more likely probably comics, because that's where a lot of stuff is going.
Right.
I would love for the movies, because there's a couple of things that was set up in this movie that could be explored one way, shape, or form, particularly in a movie.
Right.
Kind of blending some things. But yeah, I probably see them more likely than not going into the comics or a comic.
More likely than not, I think you're right.
Yeah, like a what, either if not a limited series, then a big one shot. Like they've been putting out a whole lot of. So, which would be sad. Actually, on that side note, speaking of Janna, well, not even of Janna, but yeah, definitely her story could be expanded on a little bit. But as the aforementioned Rose Tico, which apparently, and we will probably talk about this a little bit more on next week's Comic Chronicles. But there is somebody who kind of workshopping, somebody over Crazy Rich Asians was basically workshopping a show for Rose Tico, or at least they had plans that they thought of for Rose Tico to have a show.
Gotcha.
This is not Disney doing this, but this is just somebody saying, "Hey, well, this is what I would do."
Sure. Throwing it out there into the world. I gotcha.
Exactly. So whether that ends up happening, who knows? But she could use a little bit more exposure. She's
right. And last but definitely not least, among the topics that have dominated the discussion of the Rise of Skywalker, basically, Rise of Skywalker, in many eyes, seemed to be a direct undoing of the Last Jedi, and basically was taking shots at the Last Jedi. And
that is the prevailing wisdom, yeah.
Right. And this can kind of open up into a mini discussion on some of the issues surrounding the Last Jedi. But we've already touched on one of the big ones, which is that Rose Tico was reduced to a mere background character, and what that might mean, coming out of Rise of Skywalker.
Right. After all of the backlash, like somebody said online, like after all the backlash and everything, with the introduction of her character during the Last Jedi, then that, mind you, this is two different people doing these movies, because it was Rian Johnson doing Last Jedi and J.J. Abrams doing this one.
Right.
Yeah, the fact that they just shuffled her into the background like that and didn't really give her more was one of the indictments, that seemingly to be, as you said, a shot against Last Jedi. As a matter of fact, somebody I know was basically saying that what they got out of Rise of Skywalker was that J.J. Abrams really didn't like the Last Jedi. That was their opinion, but some of it feels like it could have been the case.
Yeah,
because it does feel like some of the stuff that was being done in this movie was kind of overriding that stuff.
Sure. So, I definitely am in the camp that, they did Rose Tico so dirty. They took all of that screen time and they gave it, to Dio, and they gave it to like other characters. And what kills me is that Roddy Cat and I off screen had a discussion about this very topic last week when the movie was still stupendously fresh in our memories. And what I was saying is that, and maybe I was being an apologist, I don't know, but I thought that they were treating Rose similarly, or to, giving her a similar treatment to what they did to Lando, going from Empire to Jedi. And over the course of our conversation, Roddy Cat basically helped me evolve my thinking and find that Lando still had a pretty good role in Jedi, as opposed to Rose, who had bupkis in Rise of Skywalker. because there was that Lando still did a lot of stuff in Jedi. He was part
He
of
was
the
there more
rescue team.
prominently than right. You could put both this movie and Last Jedi's Rose appearances together, and it still wouldn't potentially be half of what Lando did in Jedi, seemingly.
Yeah, because he did so much more. And so when I thought about that, I said, you know what? They really screwed her over because they put Pippin from the Lord of the Rings in to basically say a couple of lines. But again, we had the same discussion that Dominic Monaghan, who J.J. Abrams had in Lost,
Mhm.
was just playing favorites.
As I had to tell 8 to 7, that yeah, J.J. Abrams has a big thing about putting his friends in things.
Yep.
Greg Grunberg being one of them, who we saw the last of in this movie.
Right.
A few different J.J. Abrams projects.
Right. Kerry Russell being there too, because I guess he was a producer on Felicity.
Correct. Yep. That was one of his first big things. And then, like you said, with so yeah, it's a thing with him.
I don't know. I mean, it's listen, The Last Jedi wasn't the worst Star Wars movie. Hello, Attack of the Clones.
Agreed.
So, it's just so.
Here's the thing. So let's come to that real quick. So yes, I agree with you there. There are people that have been saying that Last Jedi is better than this movie. And I don't know if I agree with that.
I think they're on equal footing because they both left me with this uneven feeling about the state of the story.
Sure.
I think because here's the thing, and it's I think fair to discuss the two of them together. I do think it's fair to discuss the two of these movies together because the biggest problem I had, and I think most people's first big problem with The Last Jedi, not the Canto Bight stuff, not the social justice stuff, it was Luke Skywalker and the portrayal of Luke. Right. And I did have some problems with it. And I think that's probably what colored my perception of the movie coming out of it. I have kind of softened and turned on the movie and actually see it in more of a positive light now that I've seen Rise of Skywalker.
Right. So it's worth noting at this point, Force Awakens and this movie, obviously J.J. Abrams both, and both of them have the kind of a similar thing to where there is a lot of, let's say, callbacks, fan service.
Right.
Well, actually, there's more callbacks in Force Awakens than this one, but there's definitely a lot of fan service. As I say, coming out of it, this movie is a Star Wars movie. Not a bad thing, but
right.
it is a thing. And I think there are some people. Well, I know there's some people who are under the impression that Rian Johnson is probably better for Star Wars at this point than Abrams is, which I still don't understand how in the world did Abrams got this and Star Trek, because that's one person got their hands on one too many things.
Sure,
that's a whole side thing right there, and that because Rian Johnson, at least in his telling of a story, tried to go away from what we already have and try to, there's more to Star Wars than everybody who has died in this movie. There's and the people surrounding them,
right?
And there's a whole big world that could be expanded on, and I think that's
absolutely.
Yeah, and that's what people are kind of like, well, Rian Johnson's probably better for this because at least he tried to broaden it out and make it about more than these folks that we already know. And
right. And you know what's funny about that is that is a fine message because it's important to know that there is that much more out there. And remember, there were so many Jedi. There's so many more Force users. You don't have to be a Skywalker or Palpatine, right? And
even at the end of Last Jedi, I was like, they kind of put that out there, saying, "Hey, there's there are more Force sensitive people out there," but they didn't do anything about that.
Right, and that was part of the message that was in Rian Johnson's The Last Jedi, and people just I don't think they got that message.
Right.
So, that's definitely like I said, that's definitely how my viewing of Rise of Skywalker has helped me to see what benefits The Last Jedi actually had. So, one of the things that I was disappointed in was that Finn and Rose didn't actually hash out anything in this
I'm glad
movie.
they get together. I'm personally glad they didn't.
You're glad they didn't?
Yes.
You mean they didn't just hash it out at all? Other
Well,
than the let's be in the friend zone tap?
no, I'm just glad they don't know. So here's my thing about that. Like, even with there was the rumblings of him and Ray, in the beginning. I'm like, no, I'm glad no one got together. It's not necessary. It is totally not necessary to push a story along like that. Like, just because we got the main characters of this person, and even with the Rose and Finn thing, like I thought that was like, again, like I said earlier about his arc, like that was like, so his basically whole arc is because other people are basically helping him grow and not him growing himself, what it feels like. So the Rose and Finn thing seemed kind of contrived in the first place, them get together because she basically met an idol who was not what she originally thought he was, but still tried to quote unquote save him, something like that. That doesn't necessarily mean they need to get together either, is my thinking on that.
No, I understand. That's definitely a more modern way of thinking, that there doesn't have to be a romance involved,
Right.
for these storylines to for these characters to progress.
Now, Finn and Poe, maybe. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. That has been the thing that even like Oscar Isaac's been kind of like, keeping kind of out there. I think even Boyega too, but I can't remember. But regardless, so
Sure. So there have been gosh, there have been a number of, actually, just as a real quick thing, I just want to throw it out there. We did not do a treasury edition for The Last Jedi, so I don't have a memorialized review of this online that could help me remember what I said. But my biggest beef with The Last Jedi was they never actually get to the codebreaker guy. They end up working with whatchamacallit, Benicio del Toro's character.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait, you're terrible field operatives, Finn and Rose.
Hey, but to do the job. Like, granted, he turned on them, but they
found the wrong. Yeah, they found the wrong. Yeah, and that's not to say that the codebreaker wouldn't have turned on them too, right. But they could have at least found the real codebreaker.
Yeah, I feel like that one. I kind of agree with you there, but at the same time, it probably went the way it was going to. It was definitely meant to go.
Right. But like I said, that's my take on that. So there's a number of Easter eggs that are sprinkled throughout the Rise of Skywalker, namely a reference to the original 1977 release date. Apparently, the festival that is Burning Man style on Pisana happens every 42 years, and I didn't realize that it had been 42 years since.
Yeah, I kind of glossed over that one myself. I was like, okay, they're clearly they put that number out there for, and not just because it's the meaning, the life of and everything, but because there was some significance of it, and that was it.
Right. Another Easter egg was the planet Mustafar, where Kylo is first seen in the movie trying to get the Wayfinder. But there's trees on Mustafar, and that threw, I think, everyone that realizes that Mustafar was a volcanic planet.
Which, not saying that there couldn't be trees on it, but at the same time, we have never ever seen that part of it. And yeah, it's just kind of, even in the comics, like I was saying to Agent 7 earlier, I was like, yeah, we've seen Mustafar come up, but we've never really seen trees or that kind of life.
Right.
There is life on it, just not that kind that we've seen much of it.
Right. Apparently BB-8 had the honor of saying, "I've got a bad feeling about this," which is tradition in Star Wars movies and Star Wars anything.
But also, yeah, and it did happen, but we heard Lando's do it also. So yeah, that part was like, again, like we were saying earlier, like Ed Soder was saying earlier.
Oh no, Lando gets to do it here. BB-8 did it in the last movie. My apologies.
Right. Which, going back to what you were saying earlier, it was like, are we expected to know droid to know that?
Right.
And I kind of agree with you, but at the same time, there have been times where we kind of know what a droid is saying by the intonation of their beeps or whatnot. But yeah, that one was not necessarily. Matter of fact, I think no. I remember when he said it in the last one because I think Poe was like, "Hey, have a little faith, buddy," but we still didn't necessarily know, what exactly he said until something like this come up.
Sure. All right. We mentioned this earlier that the celebration scenes that were added in the special edition of Jedi Return of the Jedi reappear at the end of this movie in different places. Actually, it says including both the Cloud City of Bespin and that famous moon of Endor. So I think that's what it was.
So okay, so we were talking about this at the a couple of weeks ago after the end of at the end of a off mic, basically.
Right.
And, Agent 70 thought it was Lothal, which I could definitely, if you look at the building, you could either say it's either Lothal or Coruscant, because it's a big, Legion of Doom shaped or base shaped round building. But apparently, yeah, this is saying this Bespin. Now, Bespin, yes, it has a similar structure, so you could say that, but no one's really. That would be one of the last places I would have thought they would have taken the celebration,
right?
Because like I said, I would have thought Lothal before and Coruscant because they've done it in the past. But Bespin, like, okay, like that one was just a throwaway, or it seemed like a throwaway. Like, we get the connection to Lando, but at the same time, like, who would have even thought that? Like, at least Endor, like, okay, yeah, we see that's where a large part of every movie came across. And granted, yeah, Bespin had a good chunk either. But at this point, that sounds like something that would have been like just tacked on to a special edition.
Yep.
Like it being Bespin. So,
yep.
But hey, apparently that was the case then.
Yep.
As a matter of fact, it even says here, like, the celebrations mimic what we see in George Lucas' special edition cut. So,
yep,
which is true, but we don't have a special edition. So, anyway,
so we mentioned this. The opening crawl has the message about the dead speaking. The message coming from Emperor Palpatine that he's still alive, and apparently the recording was actually transmitted in Fortnite during the Star Wars event.
And J.J. Abrams was there for that, because that happened like probably the week of, if not the week, yeah, it was like the week before, like the Saturday, I believe, or something like that, before Rise of Skywalker came out, and J.J. Abrams was there for the event, and they even had some other Star Wars related content that was put in the game. But if you don't play Fortnite, you wouldn't know that, and I'm not going to do that. Like, I liked one version of Fortnite, but since they screwed that version over, I'm not playing that other thing.
That's funny.
So, but yeah, so according to this, yeah, apparently Palpatine himself, Ian McDermott, delivered the broadcast that was talked about in the beginning crawl. Like, no one's going to know that unless you played Fortnite.
Right.
Now, to be fair, there's a lot of people that play Fortnite.
Sure. There are. Next up, we saw Admiral Akbar turn into fried calamari. Oh no! In The Last Jedi, but we see his son take up the reins in this.
How are we supposed to know that?
I don't know. We just see another Mon Calamari. That's it.
Exactly. And exactly. That's kind of just like, okay, so we just inferred just because they're the same race that's the same. There was some relation to that. But okay, sure.
I don't know. So whatchamacallit? Next up,
it's a trap. That's how we didn't know it. We couldn't have known it was him. If he said that, that's how we would have known it was his son.
Yeah. Next up, we got a surprise cameo appearance. Someone flying with the large Resistance backup fleet at the Battle of Exegol, and that was the appearance of Dennis Lawson's Wedge Antilles.
Yes, looking older. Hey, that one kind of escaped because you mentioned this when we talked off mic or previously, and I'm like, dang, I kind of missed that one, and until you said what he said,
right?
Like, huh, that was Wedge. Like, go figure.
Right, you had to actually take a look at his face because the dude has got like gray hair, and
exactly, he's gotten much older since
exactly.
So, and that was like then I had to think. We had this conversation about Porkins and Wedge.
Porkins, but we know Porkins.
I mean, not Wedge, Porkins and Biggs, not but.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Porkins and Biggs do die in the battle of the first Death Star. So
Right. So pour some blue milk for those folks.
yes. Apparently, I didn't notice this, but the Millennium Falcon's original round radar dish is back after the square one was destroyed in the last movie.
Right, which not the first time that has happened in a Star Wars movie.
Right.
So I don't know what's the point of them putting that back there.
Right.
Because everything gets put back, it gets destroyed again.
Right. We talked about Luke's X-wing coming out of the water thanks to him force lifting it out of the water.
Now that part was actually one of my favorite parts, also, because again, like we said earlier, his little smirk at him bringing it up when Rey turns around to look at him was like, and I think I did say this earlier, but it's like, yeah, the fact that he did it, when he couldn't do it in Empire was like, like that was just an achievement of his on his own.
Yep. Next up, we see that Finn and Poe play a game of Djarik against Chewie. That is that video chess type game that we've seen being played over the course of several films.
Yes, that you have to let the Wookiee win.
That's right.
Yes, surprisingly, no sabacc. Actually, or not surprisingly, but that's Fandom's game.
Exactly. I was going to say we saw lots of sabacc and Solo.
Yes.
So
there was a game I still like. It's out there and there's been established rules and it's even been in a video game that I still can't wrap my head around. But that's so. Anyway, it's like
whatchamacallit. Next up is Palpatine dropping a line about the dark side as a path to many abilities some consider unnatural. So that is
we kind of alluded to this with the whole that, like you said, the Anakin not being taught how to do the force healing stuff, and like I said, they kind of skipped from A to Z on what he was being told about what you could do with the force.
Right.
So
let's see. Next up, Snoke and Vader. So we find out that whatchamacallit, that Kylo Ben was just a puppet for the Emperor to pull. We hear two voices in his head, Snoke and Vader.
Mm-hmm. It was a third, but maybe not.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But next up,
definitely Snoke and Vader was the ones that were like, okay, yeah.
Right. Next up is something that we were all looking forward to, or we were both looking forward to. Ships from the Clone Wars and Rebels appearing in the big whatchamacallit, the big rescue, the big charge scene. Everyone coming out of portals. Oh
jeez. I know, right? Exactly. That's so sad that there's so much parallel to the game.
Yeah, but we don't get a Cap catching Mjolnir that gets everyone fired up. That's the problem.
I feel like there's probably a parallel there that's not necessarily physical.
But it's not as like surprising to the that gets because there hasn't been as much buildup, obviously.
Sure.
So
but yeah, the ghost was there, which I kind of in my viewing, like I seen it in the trailers, but I didn't remember seeing it in the movie per se. And apparently, according to this, the Hondo Nako's ship, which I believe that was the one he took.
You mean, is that the one he took from Vizago?
I want to say yes, but I don't know.
He's one of my favorite characters.
Vizago, yeah. So on my rewatch, I'm basically on. I told you I was in season 2, but I'm basically where it's like, hey, you'll owe me something. Right. They were trying to get Kanan out of where he was.
That's exactly. I was about to say. I happened to just pick a place to restart watching again. That's exactly where I am. You need to hurry up and rewatch. But
I will. I definitely will. I basically, because like I said, once, a little behind the scenes, I did my I finished Mandalorian, and then I watched a couple episodes, or at the very least that episode of Clone Wars. Of Rebels. So I'm like, now just get. And my wife was there when I was watching it, and of course the scene where Ahsoka comes in, had me smiling big time. I was like,
yes. That was pretty.
But anyway, so there's
all right.
So so basically a bunch of ships that we've seen before, the Outrider, which that's a special edition. Who cares? So the classes, I still haven't watched Resistance, so I don't know too much about that one. And the Aravana, which I didn't know. Of course, that ship has a name, but basically the ship that Han was on when we see him in Force Awakens also shows up.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I only recognize the ghost.
Exactly. Yeah, the one notable for if you've been watching,
Rebels, yeah.
Rebels, then is definitely the ghost. Who's like, yes,
Yep.
I would love to see a shot of Hera, whoever else was there.
Yep, I would have. That would have made me so happy.
Man, yeah. Anyway,
next up, we actually saw whatchamacallit, a prequel era battle droid in the background in Babu Frick's shop.
he just said he hates Babu Frick. I don't know why.
All right, we see whatchamacallit, we see Kylo losing his patience and force choking someone at a table in a meeting.
Exactly. Sounds familiar. But he just had that happen to add an extra flair to it by flipping him up in the air, which Vader has never done. So clearly he's more powerful than his granddad.
Or he just has less control.
Or more control, I guess. I don't know, depending on how you look at it.
Right.
But yeah, he slammed that dude too. Like,
yeah, he did.
Like, all right. And of course, Porgs bring themselves back into the picture.
Of course.
Sure.
When they go back to Octo, look, there they are.
Mm-hmm.
I love the article here. It says, fortunately, Chewbacca isn't around to menace them this time. He didn't just menace them, he barbecued them.
Yeah, he straight up rotisserie.
Oh my gosh. I'm like, I love Chewie, but I'm not gonna beat around the bush. He barbecued. Yeah, like you said, he rotisserie'd one or two of them.
I mean, hey, look.
Wookiees gotta eat.
I'm with Chewie on that one. That's probably some good eating. I don't know. It's like quail or something. We don't know. But yeah, so sure. Porgs. I don't know. At this point, Baby Yoda or Yodito or LBY, whatever you want to call them, over Porgs.
Yep.
I don't know. If we want to rate Porgs over Ewoks over Baby Yoda, we could do that at the end of this one. But I don't know. I feel like it's pretty much a slam. Anyway.
Sure. Next up, just very quickly, when Kylo Ben is speaking to the memory, not the Force ghost of Han Solo, apparently Han says, I know, when he should be replying, I love you. So
he doesn't know how to say I love you.
Yeah, exactly. Listen, as a man of stoic nature, I definitely understand that.
He's not stoic. He's just don't want to share his feelings. That's all.
Right. That's right. I definitely sympathize.
That's stoic than just hiding from his feelings.
I sympathize. So anyway, hold on. Next up, we get to see the throne room from the second Death Star and the wreckage of the second Death Star on the other Endor moon.
Mm-hmm. And the big one, which we talked about previously, Chewie gets his medal.
Yay! Hold on. There you go. That deserves the group applause right there.
Oh, so this one was a silly point that I totally forgot about this. So during the planning of the big mission, somebody was like, "Hey, why don't we do the holdo maneuver from the Last Jedi?" Which was basically a suicide mission. So why would you do that? And just why? And as a matter of fact, this article basically said that. So why some people argue can't they just all do a suicide mission to save the galaxy? Like that was 1 in a million. Which, by the way, that's another callback to New Hope.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, I'm like, why would you do that? It's just basically just like going on a suicide mission. What was that going to serve? So anyway, that was like while I was in the movie, I said that. I'm like, really? And I want to say it was Dominic Monaghan. I can't remember who said it.
It was Dominic Monaghan.
So basically, whoever said it was not a pilot, by the way. That was my other point. I was like,
it was totally Pippin. So
exactly, he was like, okay, of course, you not being the one who would have to do it to
right
to be the one to suggest it. Anyway,
so we talked about Tatooine becoming another part of the story at the end. Next up, we also talked about the various Jedi voices. I like that this article that we have that we're tapping into from Games Radar actually has the lines that
Yeah, breaks
the
it down.
the the Force Ghost Jedi are basically saying to Rey when she's calling upon uh as opposed to Mumra calling on ancient spirits of evil, she's calling upon ancient spirits of Jedi. So yeah, it's kind of cool. I'm not going to read them all here, but that's pretty cool.
If you're watching the video of this, you can see them.
Right.
But it's basically all of the ones you would expect, including a couple of that you would not have necessarily.
I'm just disappointed that all Ahsoka says is one word.
Yeah, and also I guess not going back to what you were saying earlier. I guess Mace must, because basically everybody in this list is one with the Force, which means they're dead. So Mace Windu is on this list.
Yeah.
So therefore, I guess he didn't make it. I guess he didn't survive that fall after all.
Right. Although, to be honest, I saw a meme, and I'm not going to go full blue on this, but I saw a meme that had a couple of the lines that people were able to pick out.
Right.
Like Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan and Yoda, and the last one was Mace. Kill this MFer. I was like, yo, that would have been so awesome.
Yeah, slightly in and or out of characteristic for Mace Windu, but yeah, that would have been like, all right, yeah, that's what's up.
I would have cried. I would have cried if that had happened. Oh my god, yo.
So another one of note, I already spoke about Ahsoka earlier. But another one of note was actually Kanan, who got a line in, which it was kind of surprised that Ahsoka got like one word and Kanan got a line.
Right.
But that one's the one I kind of picked up on. I was like, that was expected. But the ones that was kind of unexpected was like, okay, Luminara was a big figure, so so that one makes sense.
Right.
But at the same time, there weren't too many times. Like, yeah, we heard her talk during the course of Clone Wars, but at the same time, even in the non-canon, I guess at this point, Clone Wars, which was the Genndy Tartakovsky's one.
Right.
But yeah, she's definitely a figure there. But Isla Secura, that was another one, and Adi Gallia, like those two, who we saw in the prequels.
Yeah, I mean, what's weird is that you would think. Oh, then again, you don't really get to hear Plo Koon say too much in the movies either.
There's also that, yeah.
Right.
I would have expected that.
Right, exactly. I would have expected to see him before, or to hear him before Master Adi Gallia. Or Ayla Sakura, not before Master Luminara, because she did play a big role.
Yeah, like I said, she was a big figure back.
Yeah,
So I could even going into Clone Wars to a certain extent, but I mean, excuse me, Rebels, if you go by that one episode,
right?
But yeah, like I said, it kind of bummed me out that Ahsoka was on the list.
So real quick, to follow up on this, on that point. On that exact point, did you see what Dave Filoni tweeted out? A drawing?
No, I did not.
What? Okay, so I'm about to give
at least I don't think I did.
Give Roddy Cat some positive news, I hope, about Ahsoka. So, and it's funny that having not analyzed exactly what she says in the cameo appearance, the cameo line, knowing that it's only one line now is helpful, because what I would tell Roddy Cat and members of the audience do is to check the Twitter account of Dave Filoni. I don't know if you pulled it up already.
I'm about to now.
And you can even put it on the stream so that it pops up and people can see it. I'm just waiting for mine to load because my old MacBook Pro is old.
That's fine. Crap. Oh, so there's a article from IGN and says Dave Filoni posts message to Star Wars fan worried about Ahsoka's fate.
Right.
Is that it? So here, I'll put it up here. You can see it on the video if you're. And it says, people thought I was dead too. Look how that turned out.
Right. It's a drawing of Gandalf from Lord of the Rings.
Oh, I did see this.
There it is.
Yes. And I didn't necessarily know what that, being kind of hopeful, but I didn't exactly know what that fully meant. But Yes, I did see this. I'm like, okay, all right. I did absolutely see this.
So I wonder if the reason why she only speaks one word is because she is force projecting as opposed to speaking as a force ghost.
Well, then that could open up the window to most races, maybe possibly, or
No, she no, because Mace basically he spits out a whole line.
I
That's
mean,
all.
but he's also one of the most powerful Jedi. So
That's
so
true.
if anybody was going to be able to do more than one word, it would be him.
Right.
It would be him, Yoda, and probably, well, I mean, Anakin at this
Oh
point,
yeah. Yeah.
Obi-Wan, I guess.
Of course. I mean, there's always hope, but I have this feeling that that's probably the only thing I can hold on to when you take one, when you take the fact that she only says one thing.
She was basically tapped in enough to
Exactly.
be on it. She was on the. She could only hold the Skype call for a second. So
Exactly. So that's the only thing that I can hold on to, because Filoni's like, hey, hold on now.
you know what? I'm willing to go with this. Yes, I'm on board with this.
So, but I would have cried if it was kill this month. I would have.
Yeah, that'd have been like that would have taken me back.
I would have cheered. I would have been like, yes.
Revenge, motherfucker. Yeah.
Exactly. So, I'm sorry, folks. It was, that's not going to be we have a couple of more points of discussion before we wrap this show. But imagine if that was the one thing I would change about the entire sequel trilogy was Mace coming out and yelling out, "Kill this mother!"
I'm sure there will probably be some fan that will do something along that lines. If not, well, there definitely won't be in a special edition if there ever is one of these. But
right. So we're in the home stretch. This is a new segment on the Treasury edition. I'm calling it "Let's Create Fan Fic." Basically, it's just, and I want to try to limit it because there's so much that you can do with your own interpretation of how things could have gone if you had made creative decision a different way or differently than the creative teams behind the movies.
Right.
The sequel trilogy has many pros and cons, but what's one major thing that you would change that would create a ripple effect, a cascade of changes, and possibly result in what would be a better trilogy?
I would have probably not killed Luke until this one.
Okay.
Because coming out of Last Jedi, I figured like why would they do that then when he was still around? Like, yeah, I get it that he came back as Force Ghost, which I knew was going to happen, but still, like,
right.
Okay, they're gonna, especially the cap off, like pretty much all the other Skywalkers are actually dead in this one,
right?
So, like, one just hit the trilogy. I mean, hit the trifecta on that one, I guess.
Interesting. See, now I have a different take on when people should die, and this is the cascading effect that I came up with. So, I basically said that The Force Awakens stays the same, except, and this is the cascading decision, except Han stays alive. What changes is that the original trilogy group all gets together in the second movie. That was what I felt missing, and I think a lot of people wanted to see that.
Sure.
And
but I'd say I feel like that's kind of going back to what some folks are trying to get away with that. But I see, I do see it your way though.
Right. And then but to address that, that's when you kill all of them. Okay. That's when you kill all of them, every single one of them. And obviously in hindsight, right? It's easy to say that they should have tried to capitalize on these older actors while they're still alive. No one thought Leia would go first. I think everyone thought Han because Harrison Ford is getting a lot older and he had that airplane crash scare.
That, and he's been wanting to kill that character for years now.
Right. So I feel like everyone thought, he was going to go first, and that was right. I mean, in real life,
sure.
But I feel like they should have tried to, especially when you're dealing with these older characters, they should have tried to capitalize on the fact that they had them all still healthy during The Last Jedi, during the second movie. Maybe not call it The Last Jedi, but definitely during the second movie. And that's when you kill them all.
So you actually, to that point of the title of the movie, and I'm kind of with I get their reasoning for the titling of this one, but even though it's still technically not very much true, if they had switched the titles of this one and The Last Jedi,
Right.
would have worked. Feels like it would have worked better.
Right, but they needed to go with the ominous second movie title.
Yeah,
You know,
sure.
I know what you mean.
And I get that, but yeah, but like I said, this I don't know. And even then, like the Rise of Skywalker, when technically she's not, she just took the name, even though that they were going for more than that, because all of the Skywalkers are dead.
Yeah, I mean, I would have loved to see them all bite the bullet and then have the third movie be the one that sets off a new direction for the series.
Sure, which it does to a point, but yes, I agree with
Right,
you.
exactly. But like that would have been the best send off, because that's the tragedy film, the middle film.
Right.
The tragedy film is the middle film. Can you imagine the Skywalker line all going out in one movie, and then having the baton being picked up in the third movie?
Right.
Yes, you wonder about Rey's training, but then if everybody's a Force ghost, they could just train her as Force ghosts.
That was my point from earlier, right? And if Luke didn't die, well, I guess if Luke didn't die, then that definitely may have possibly have changed her training in this one, because it wouldn't have been Leia,
right?
And
right, it would have been, yeah, exactly. That's where the difference lies, right? You have to figure out how Rey trains herself to be a Jedi, gets trained to be a Jedi. If I decide to kill everybody off in the second movie, Chewie included,
or if Leia had a fight scene, that'd have been dope.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, it's easy to see it in hindsight, but at the same time, we all live in the real world. We have to keep in mind that, some of these actors who are getting a little on in age,
right?
You want to try to capitalize on them, and you should write that into your films. Tragedies happen, accidents happen. We all know this, but especially when you're dealing with the older cast members like that, maybe you tweak your writing to accommodate and say, hey, let's have the big reunion in the second movie.
Yeah, like, I don't know, killing them off granted, the way they did it kind of works. Maybe not the way they planned it, or maybe the way they did plan it. I don't know, because they all definitely get killed off, but if they killed them off all at the same time, I don't know.
That would have been awesome. Or maybe not all at the same time, but in the movie, they would all have been killed off in the second movie.
Yeah, but I think the statement was being made that the fact that they were being killed off one by one, and I kind of figured going into the trilogy that they were going to do something like that, and they kind of did. But
I think it lessens. I think what everyone wanted to see was them together one last time, and I think that's what lessens the nostalgia effect, and I think it lessens. I think the selling power of the movie, to be honest.
So basically, if they had moved up Han being the first one killed to the second movie, and then everybody just
everyone going like a domino, right?
Yeah, I could see that, and then everybody could have had their moment.
Yep.
The first one, but they would have had to put Luke in the first one, which they didn't until the end. So that would have been something they would have had to change.
Right. I can only imagine. Right. The thing is, they need the problem with Abrams' thinking on the first one is that he made it mimic A New Hope, original Star Wars, where Obi-Wan dies to protect whatchamacallit, to protect the original crew to escape.
Right, which I'm kind of slightly surprised, because going into that, I was thinking, well, maybe that's when they killed that. That's especially going through that, watching that movie, like, okay, they're going to kill Luke
in the same way, yeah.
Right, in the same way, because it's mirroring the same thing, but they didn't do that.
I gotcha. All right, so you got that's my decision to move up, to hold back on killing Han until the second movie and kill everybody in the second movie.
Sure.
Because we get the reunion, and then the third movie can be like, not a fresh start, but a finishing of the story.
What if Rose Tico was introduced in the same way she was introduced in a Force Awakens, and then she rises to the level of a general
in the course of two movies?
During the course of the trilogy, yes.
That would have been better. That would have been better, because that would have showed a character arc.
Yes. But we didn't get that.
Yep.
But outside of that, there's a whole bunch of little things. I don't know if any of it would like just cascade to anything to making it better. But my first, yeah.
All right, that's fine. I mean, the next point I just jotted in.
Time for fanfic, folks. Like, so I can't just. No, I'm just joking, but I'm slightly joking because there's some stuff I pulled off with some weird thinkings. But this.
Oh, you mean like different ways they could have done things?
Well, fanfic just in general, but we're going way farther into the fanfic territory than you may be thinking.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Let's not go that far.
No. Yeah, I'm not, but I'm just saying, yeah.
We're not going into erotica here on.
Oh, perish the
All right. So, the original. I think what the original idea was for Leia to have a final battle in full Jedi style. In the Last Jedi, that she would be the Last Jedi.
Right.
And obviously her passing really changed the story. I don't know, and like I said, I think that I wasn't sure that was the best idea because we've already seen geriatric Jedis going at it. That was in, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, at the very least, I could see like, okay, that last battle with Rey and Palpatine, like, yeah, she would have been there. She would have fought. Whether she would have been struck down or not would have been the case, but she would have been there in some significant form, and then Rey just takes the ball and alley-oops it.
Right.
Type of situation, and then passes the baton after that. Maybe into her given the rest of her life force to Ben, she probably would have given it to Rey.
I got you.
During the near the end of that battle or something.
I got you.
Everyone else.
I got you. All right. So, okay. So that's that. I think that's pretty much this topic. As we continue down the home stretch, like President Bartlett asks,
what's next?
For the Star Wars film franchise, do you think the initial focus is going to remain on Disney Plus where it is now and somehow move back to theaters? When do you think that might happen?
I feel like we already know that because I'm fairly certain I know they've said this on the Marvel side because they basically said like, hey, some of the stuff that's on Disney Plus is going to play into movies going forward. And I feel like that would be something they would do for the Disney stuff too.
Sure.
Like we've kind of already seen with the Mandalorian, there's something that played out of that definitely played into Rise of Skywalker. So there's nothing that wouldn't tell me that they wouldn't do this going forward.
Right. I'm curious to see what Kevin Feige does.
Yeah.
I'm curious.
Yeah. Actually, there's a slight side note that I forgot to mention to you earlier that I didn't put into, but I will put this into the document, which I guess I should have put in around that Easter egg one. So there's an article out there about Rise of Skywalker plot holes answered by the visual dictionary,
right?
From Anna to Rey's lightsaber. So, with some of that stuff we kind of already talked about, so there's no necessarily need to go into some of it, but that is also another thing that's gonna, that's kind of tells about some stuff that didn't get brought up in the movie.
Sure. Okay, so do you think that Rey ends up reforming the Jedi Order with updated rules, e.g., Jedi can finally get married?
So I don't know about that part, but because she still was never told about that part, to be boldly honest. But if that was something that was going to happen, probably because it's outdated. But at the same time, I feel like if they go back on Last Jedi's beats, they would definitely go and find those foundlings and start up a new order, like all the Force sensitive children. And because I think that list may be still out there or was out there. And granted, that list probably old at this point, but and there's more that's I'm sure out there. So I'm fairly certain they would basically try to, if not bring back the order, definitely find those kids and train them up so that there won't be any more Anakin situations.
Right.
One would hope anyway.
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
But and to your other thing about does she retire and become a moisture farmer? No.
I mean, my personal feeling on the whole Jedi Order thing is, and not to bring in too much of a real world analog, but come on, let the pastors marry, right?
Right.
You know,
But
so let the Jedi marry.
let the whole thing die. They basically said like, hey, let the past die. Let the order needs to die. So
Right, but it's reborn as an order that has updated rules, like they can marry, you know?
or just left out there because the Jedi Order comes back, then the Sith will somehow find a ground. That has been the way of the thing since the Old Republic. So maybe to keep that from happening, they just don't bring the Order up at all. But however, they do. I don't know. Maybe there is a school for gifted kids.
But then you would get an evil brotherhood of Sith. I mean,
One way or the other was probably going to happen. So yeah. But starting a new order is, as we've seen, has been rife with problems.
Gotcha.
Granted, but he didn't necessarily have the full training of the Jedi's anyway. But even when there was full training of the Jedi with his dad, he didn't fare much better. Granted, he tried to kill them all, so that's a whole other situation.
Right. All right. So we have come to the last topic of discussion tonight on our long but very, very in-depth Treasury edition of the Rise of Skywalker, and that is Rankum. What are your
rank for, as in the monster from Jedi?
Exactly. What are your current we'll do either top 5 favorite Star Wars live action movies, or if we feel up to it, rankings of every Star Wars live action film ever.
I have seen people's rankings, and I feel like they were a little premature, but that's just me.
Right.
Especially this one kind of needs to sit a second. And I feel like my ranks are going to change regardless. So whatever I say now is going to change at some point in the future. I'm fairly certain. Do you already have your top 5?
No, I'm going to work through them.
Okay.
I'm going to work through them.
So if I go off my old list or with my old thinking, Empire's first. Let's see. Empire, New Hope, Return of the Sith, Jedi,
Revenge of the Sith.
Okay. Jedi, and probably I feel like Rogue One needs to be in there, but
yeah, I was about to say.
But there were some things I wasn't crazy about with Rogue One, but the way that movie just went overall was pretty great. So maybe that one at this point,
right,
for 5th.
Right. No. That definitely jives me. So yeah, I probably have Empire, A New Hope, like Empire, New Hope, maybe Rogue One as high as 3rd.
I can see it.
And Revenge of the Sith as 4th, and I guess Jedi is 5th. I don't have any of the prequels. No, I don't have. I have one prequel. I have Revenge of the Sith. The sequels just don't come up to that level for me right now.
Right, and like I said, that could possibly change as time goes by. But yeah, if we're talking top 5, like yeah, that's
exactly
fairly solid.
Right, you may have to come back to us to do a full ranking. Because like you said, we may have to sit on this for a little while and come up with it. But I think my top 5 really hasn't changed in the wake of the sequel trilogy.
Right. The only thing I can safely tell you is that Attack of the Clones will more than likely be the very last one.
Yeah, pretty much that and Phantom.
Phantom is actually kind of up there a little bit for me, but
Phantom is the Duel of the Fates.
Bottom 5 for sure, but
yeah, Phantom is Duel of the Fates. I know everyone likes to reduce it to that.
I mean, yeah, but let's face it, that was a good scene.
I know.
I don't know. There was a little bit more to it. It was kind of long and a little bit plotty, but yeah, it's it started
kind of Jar Jar.
There is that. So yeah, for sure.
Right. I mean, listen, I love Revenge of the Sith because of the high ground. And
It wasn't just that. It's like, okay, the Clone Wars start, or
well, wrap up. Yeah, exactly.
right, Order 66, all of that's
Yeah,
like good mess. Well, not Clone Wars start, but you know what I'm saying? Yeah,
Exactly.
like it's just a culmination of a lot of things, and wrapped around Clone Wars.
Yep.
And Anakin's ascension to being Vader. So basically a lot of things that ended up coming out of that one, and it was just a well done movie as far as the prequel is concerned. Anyway,
Exactly. So, but anyway, so thanks for listening, everybody, to our spoiler-filled Comic Book Chronicles Treasury Edition, Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. I've got one last ad read for the night. It is for Funko. Fun at first sight. Your home for exclusive collectibles such as their world-famous pop vinyl bobbleheads, apparel, t-shirts, hats, and socks, and brand merchandise such as custom DIY pop figures, art books, and skateboards. And now the listeners of the Comic Book Chronicles can enjoy 10% off your entire purchase when shopping at Funko. To place your first order with 10% off and to help keep our show free for you, go to our network website at cspn.us. That's cspn.us. Then click on the Keep Our Podcasts free link at the top of the page. From there, scroll down to the Funko link and place your order. When you get to the checkout, put in the offer code SHOP10, SHOP10, for your 10% off discount. Funko through cspn.us. Do it today. Right. So we have come to the end of our Treasury edition covering Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. You can find the hosts of the Comic Book Chronicles. My name is at Agent_70. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram under that same moniker. You can find my co-host at Roddycat on at Roddycat on Twitter and at News Nerds Need on Twitter, as well as on Instagram, running the CB Caps account on Instagram. You can find our co-hosts who are still digesting Rise of Skywalker at PCN. Say again?
Much like the Sarlacc pit.
Exactly. At PCN_dirt on Twitter, at Pop Culture Net on Twitter, popculturenetwork.com, and all of his umbrella sites therein. You can find at TimDog98 on Twitter. You can find him running the at The Click Nation Twitter account, as well as tweeting on the at CBCron Twitter account, and running the www.theclicknation.com website, as well as writing his face off on cbr.com. You can find our podcast on wherever you find your podcasts, your favorite podcast source, such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, SoundCloud, the CSPN SoundCloud page, and you can find our website hosted by the Cold Slither Podcast Network. That website is cspn.us. That is cspn.us. All right, so you can tune in next week for our regularly scheduled Comic Book Chronicles to ring in the new year.
Indeed, and if you want to, you can check out the point we just did for a couple of days that we recorded a couple of days ago, which should be out there, which is episode 344.
Right. So be on the lookout for episode 344, as well as this Treasury edition for Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. Thanks for listening, and we are out. Peace. One. And we finished the regular way we do it.
I love it when a plan comes together.